jobs and opportunity and visibility to take care of their families. So you divide them along the lines of sex. Then you divide them along the lines of age, where the old turn against the young turn against the old, and say, you're ancient, you're old, I don't want to listen to you. And it worked very effectively. And Willie Lynch put that on them. It's called divide and conquer. Divide and conquer in the 1710s, it was in 1950 in Korea. And black folk became invited. And so from 1750 up to about from 1710 to 1750, the system started going into effect. Black folk called full steam then. Because see, now we're very concerned about all these black slaves. We had to control them. And people say, well, how do you control, how are we going to control them? And said the first way, and there are three ways you do it, but the first way is by physical control. Always control a black person physically. That's what slavery is about. The second way of controlling them was called Jim Crowism. Then you control them legally. Then the third way you control them is when we came out of the civil rights movement, which means symbolically. You control them by manipulating symbols. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. So they went into the first thing of controlling black folk physically, slavery. By 1750, the black population got up to 34% in America. And they were very concerned about this because you see all these slaves were pouring in across the water, so they started advertising to bring in more immigrants. They said, what we need are more white immigrants to dilute. Remember I told you the Diversity Act said we must have so many whites. So we got to have an immigration law that bring in more whites to neutralize blacks out, to keep them contained, to keep them as a minority. And we'll fix it so they'll love that word minority. They'll use it all the time and call themselves that. Even though we know the minority means loser. We'll turn the world upside down, they'll call themselves loser, loser, loser. So by 1750, black population hit 34%. So what the white society started doing then, it says, we must do what they didn't say that then. They built into all the Indian treaties incentives for them not to identify with black folk because they afraid that if Indians and blacks got together, they could overthrow the country. Indians were given incentives then to turn against black people. And that's that the biggest killers of black for a long period of time were Indians. Because they were given incentives. For instance, if you raided a town or a village, guess who was the first person you run into in the fields? Was a black person. And in law, because the slave codes of 1705 says a black a good guy to raid. I mean, this is like shooting ducks. And the whites knew that. When they put the blacks out in the field, they used blacks for burglar alarms. So every time there was an Indian raid, they the ones that went down first. And that's why all the 5 civilized tribes in America then became slaveholders. All the 5 civilized Indian tribes were slaveholders. Not only were they slaveholders, they were slave traders. And more important than that, in all the treaties, typically in a treaty, they paid the Indians $20 for every runaway slave they chased down and brought him back. And that's why also when the Civil War came, all the 5 civilized tribes in America fought with the side of the South to preserve slavery because they didn't want to lose their money and wealth either. And I still have blacks running around saying, well, I'm half Indian. Nobody wants to be black. I mean, even if here's people that have been misusing your people too, but you don't want to be it. They'll tell me about how, well, I'm 3/4 white. I can't stand black folk. I'm 3/4 white. I said, well, why would you want to be white rather than blacks? I said, blacks didn't enslave you. Blacks didn't Jim Crow you. Blacks didn't castrate and lynch you and exploit you. And see, that's that upside down, we make black folks see things upside down and wrong. It's inappropriate behavior. Inappropriate behavior pattern was instituted on us to make sure we saw everything backwards. That way, when we ran, we thought we were running the right way, we were running the wrong way, and they knew it. And that's why you later hear me tell black folk all over America that my people, black folk, are doing everything wrong. They're not even doing wrong right. because everything is pointed upside down for us, so they can't see which way to run. And so at that time, in 1750s, the colonies then tried to figure out how to contain the whole issue. So we got our controls in place, we got the social conditioning in place, and I think we got blacks pretty well where we need them. We got nailed down. So then they then started telling England, don't send any more slaves over here to make sure it works. The Continental Congress sent all kinds of letters to England saying, don't send any more slaves to make sure our system of control works. You must come back to England first to be processed, and you all buy it back from us. When you buy it, we'll charge you 3 or 4 times the price of it. And so when England decided to have a Revolutionary War to break away from England, they didn't put that in the history book, what the real reason they want to break away from England was for. 1, because they were scared to death of black folk getting free over here and tying them with the Indians. 2, they wanted to reverse that whole shipping process, saying if we made all the products in America, we raised the cotton, corn, beans, rice, and everything, why are we sending it to you and buying it back from you? So that's what the Revolutionary War was over. And plus, England was also slaves. England was only paying $25, $35 a piece.
Dang, Kush, now you in the Matrix, Kush.
$25 to $35 a piece.
It's messing up, Kush.
You in the Matrix, Kush.
Am I in the Matrix now?
You sound good now.
Man, they out here hating hardcore, boy. I tell you.
Is that our dear elder, Dr. Claude Anderson's preacher?
Let's try it now. Hold on.
Yes.
Which says that I also want a 1,500% return on my money, my investment.
What about
if I pay $25 for a black slave in West Africa, I want to be able to sell them in America for $400 to $500 a piece. And so England was becoming a very rich and powerful nation. It's like most of it. But that was not only England, but you had all the other slave countries became richer. That was Portugal, Spain, England, Germany, and the Arab nations. All of them were getting wealthy off of black folk, off a combination of 2 things, extracting the wealth out of Africa, the material wealth, and selling the human labor. And after the Revolutionary War, the first act of Congress, as soon as they set up a Congress in the United States, the first act of Congress said, let's solve this problem with the slaves. So the first thing they did was pass what they call the First Immigration Act. That says this is a white nation, and the quota on blacks coming here other than as a slave is 0. 0, zip, none, nothing. And that stayed in effect until 1966, when it was raised to 1/2 of 1%. And I they can't figure out why you cannot get Haitians into the country. I said, God knows, don't you know what your law is? The reason you cannot get Haitians into the country because they're still fearful of you getting a large, significant black population and being a threat to the society. I said, anytime you got boats floating around off the west coast of Africa for 3 months, you had over 3,000, 4,000 blacks on there who were sick, starving to death. Not one single country offered to bring them in, not this country. At the same time, this country has had refugee programs for every racial and ethnic extraction on earth but black folk. And where's our civil rights leaders? Where's our black leadership? Why aren't they raising issues about it? Instead of them going down there and say, why can't blacks come in from the islands and from Haiti? They do the same thing because they're seeing things upside down and backwards. They do the same thing the whites do. Say, well, what we need to do is invade that country and make them stay there. Let's improve the conditions there. And so that way they have nice places there. Rather than say, no, you didn't improve all the conditions in Mexico, and El Salvador, and Nicaragua, and Hungary, and all these other countries. When the people came in, you didn't improve all the conditions in Vietnam to bring in the people. Why do you keep asking these special things black? No leadership will raise the question. Because you see, no black leadership in America wants to raise the real issues about why we cannot raise our population and others can. In a social democracy where the majority will win and the minority will lose, we are the only planned, systematically, permanently classified minority. Which means that we are the only people who will always lose based on immigration laws and the quotas coming into this country. unless we start to develop some very specific ways of dealing with it. That's what powernomics is about. I start telling you, you got to start changing the rules, turn things back upside down. You got to always practice, how do you get to be the majority? Never do anything where you're going to be a minority. Do it where you're going to become the majority. Don't move to be a minority, move to be a majority. And we're going to talk about that a little later on how you play these games and learn how to win in powernomics. But you see, as I said, by 1790, the law had locked us out as the only permanent loser. And they said that anybody losing in society from now on, it would be black people. They're the only people that cannot increase their population significantly to be a threat to this country. By the late part of the 1790s, they said what other kind of external controls can we put on black folk? Because now someone want to try to join the religious movement in this country. And in religion, we say that everybody's a brother. And if we baptize them and make them a Christian, how do we deal with that fact? So they passed a law saying that Christianity did not relieve your heathenism for a black person. And they did not want, after that time, a few blacks had been going to church, but they were sitting in white churches, and they had to be monitored and watched, as I told you, because of the Diversity Act. So when the evangelical movement started moving through this country in the turn of the first in 1800s, early 1800s, they said, we'll let blacks have their churches, but we can always we must pick the ministers, and we must license the ministers. We must pick ministers that we can control. No black preacher can come into America unless he is controlled by the white establishment, unless he represents our interests and our values, unless he teaches our form of Christianity. Now, this is very important. Why? Because, you see, before, religion was always used to help a population group. When it comes to blacks, we cannot let religion be used to help them. You see, the Catholics, church took care of all those groups who call themselves Catholics. Jews, priests, took care of the Jews. And even today, you go into the conflicts in England or Ireland, where you see the Protestants and the Catholics fighting. I guarantee you that the Protestant members will be representing their people and protecting them. I guarantee you that the Catholic priests will be representing the Catholics and protecting them. If I take you into the Middle East with the Arabs, I guarantee you Khomeini will be taking care of Arabs. Only in America can I find black ministers who can be bought and sold to be against their own people. Nobody else will let you do that. No population will tolerate that except our people. And that's what I call inappropriate behavior. Inappropriate behavior pattern when you let your own ministers sell you out. It's not in your best interest. What I mean by sell you out is because by the early 1800s, the whites said, well, we're going to have black ministers. We got to have to Christian them to make sure they do what we want to have done. They must teach Christianity the way we want it taught, to where it is an external control device on black folk. They said, what are the rules? One, that every minister we license must teach black folk. If you talk about the slave and the master in the Bible, that you're talking about the white man and the black man on earth. Two, the minister must teach black folk that they're to be loyal, faithful, obedient, respectful, and all those other good things, and honest, so that white people don't have to worry about them stealing as a slave. Because, you know, black slaves had a nasty habit of going around stealing scraps of food because they were starving to death. And they would tell them they must be industrious. But you see, white folk want you to work a little harder. So they use the term, he's a lazy slave. Now, anybody in his right mind got more than a third grade education would say, why would a slave want to be industrial? Why would you want to work hard as a slave? What's in it for you? Are you going to get released early? You going to get a pension? Social Security or retirement? But they always got this thing about why he's a lazy slave. I even got a black writer writes about that day. Part of the problem is the blacks were lazy slaves. He should have been lazy. The third thing they put on you is that, well, the black ministers must also teach them to get pie in the sky after death. They're going to turn their world upside down. So while everybody else is competing to get resources, to get wealth, to get power, black folk are saying, I'm waiting for mine in the sky. They said, well, the role model would be Jesus Christ. Yeah, Jesus Christ and all the Jews were very powerful people, had money. Solomon was the richest man on earth. You go look at Matthew, I think Matthew 23, when they start talking about the talent. But different slaves had talents. And two of them went out and developed their talents and multiplied and made something. And one buried and hid his. Because they knew that would be that black one, to be that last one, go out and hide it. Y'all understand what I'm talking about? Now, but during that period of time, though, in the 1800s, when they started putting all the religions on them, they started controlling them, a few blacks said, well, wait a minute now, because something just happened down in Haiti. Now, I know that I can guess in the future, y'all aren't going to let the Haitians into this country. But in the 1800s, what happened was Toussaint Overture. Toussaint Overture took his little band of rabble-rousing blacks in Haiti and beat the devil out of all the French troops. Ran them raggedy. Beat the devil out of them. Now, that was important because, for two reasons. First of all, that is the only time in Western history where the white society blinked and black folk took advantage of them and beat them. Y'all remember that? Only time in history that blacks ever broke free of that conditioning system I told you in 1710, the same one they used again in the Korean War. And again, the reason I want to point out that system to you, that brainwashing system, why is it so important? You all remember this and why it's so important. And that's why I must give the dominant white society praise for this. I mean, they're some very smart people. Very smart. Why did I say that? Because, you see, the people that put that system on black folk in 1710, they had the equivalent of a third or fourth grade education. And here we are today, 250 years later, or 200-something years later, almost 300, and black folk with doctor's degrees and master's degrees can't figure it out. Now, but little Toussaint Overture down in Haiti, he won his battle, beat him good. Now that meant when he beat him, though, they finally tricked him and said, well, now that you've beaten us, wouldn't you like to come together and integrate? He went to discuss it with them at a meeting. They captured him, put him on a boat, and shipped him to someplace in Europe, some country way up in Iceland, one of those, I think Finland or someplace, and it froze him to death up there in the prison. Because he went to co-op, and I told you in Korea. In the Korea and the brainwashing techniques, there's another principle that says that anytime you want to control anybody, I can control anybody who's willing to talk and compromise and discuss with me. I can get compromised. And see, what we're trying to teach our soldiers is called a code of conduct in Korea, which says never talk to the enemy unless it's on your turf and your terms. And see, right now, what I'm assistant police commissioner, I'm working as a therapist for prisoners. Anytime I get somebody to communicate and talk with me, I got him. If he'll speak to me and answer my questions, I got him. Sooner or later, he's going to break down and tell me what I know. The way you resist is you don't communicate. You don't compromise your principles. They can never beat you then.
If you guys are having a hard time hearing still, please make sure you guys come on stage. I guess it's clearer on stage. Twitter out here hating on the space. Also, don't forget to retweet the Black-owned business up there in the Jumbotron and subscribe to Wake and Bake with Kush. Do. Shout out to my Black family. I appreciate y'all coming in. Make sure you also retweet.
And see, now they got Overture. They asked him to don't you integration. So I get told out for that okie doke. And the first one in 1800 was Gabriel Prosser. Gabriel was an extremely smart black guy. He says, I just heard about what Toussaint Overture did down in the islands. And said, if Toussaint can do it, I'm going to do it here. He said, I'm going to do the same thing. And he did some planning, and you couldn't believe. He worked, he planned, he schemed. Prosser really worked on this thing. And he planned one of the most devastatingly, strategically well-planned insurrections on earth. Now, before I tell you what he did, let me go back and make this point. I tracked between 1710 and 1860, and we had a possible 150 to 200 possible slave revolts. And in all 150 to 200 of them, a black person squealed in every one of them and got his meritorious manumission and his Willie Lynch badge card. And so when Prosser was trying to pull his together, he planned his scheme. And for the day he was supposed to have his big revolt, would you believe one of the most severe storms that ever hit Virginia came in and washed out most of the land and roads and bridges, and Prosser's group couldn't get together, their gathering point, because they were planning on hitting three things. They were planning on taking over the penitentiary in Richmond, they were planning on taking over the armory, and they were planning on attacking the town and annihilating the town, everybody except the Methodists and the Quakers, who had befriended them. And the storm struck just as they didn't assemble. The 300 showed up, and Prosser said, 300 of us here, let's put it off until next week when the land is dry. In 3 days, a black person squealed. Prosser was arrested, along with 35 of his supporters, were executed, heads chopped off, put on. Two blacks did. One was called Tom, another was called Pharaoh. And Tom, he's gonna do something. Now, I don't know. I don't mean to put down anybody named Tom. There's something about that name. And itself is not too much of a name. I wouldn't trust that name either. If somebody, I'm in the world, but the way turning, chop the head off, along with some other holes. The thing that became very important in the case, though, the time fearful, because they found out from rumors that Prosser had somewhere between 5 and 50,000 slaves. So all you mean tell me we put a conditioning system on black folks, we turn everything upside down, and this black guy was able to do the impossible with education? Something is wrong in our system. What's wrong? And I'm serious, this was a big issue. They had to find out how this one black guy get together as a slave and have something between 5 and 50,000 blacks heading out to perform their country. Finally came out to another woman.
It's messing up again, Kush.
Hey, you know me. Let's try again. Now, is this messing up?
Get out of the mountain. You look up at a peak. You look for the Penobscot building. When you find someone, you find that he looked at the state seal. A man lying prostrate, and a black man put on his chest. White and the black guy was called, and then in the seal it said, "Verticus overcomes Tyrannus." And that black man had used that seal as his motivating force, his guiding light for his people. And when whites found that out, immediately they changed the seal and said, "Get rid of that seal fast." And put up around the Capitol and make sure it didn't happen again. And that was in 1800. By 1821, another black named Vesey got equally as concerned. He'd heard about it. He said he's going to try it. And try another revolt. But VC says up front, VC organized his group. He walked around, he was a free black. He got free because he bought his own, paid $600 and freed himself. He won money in a lottery. But he's very upset because he couldn't buy his children out of slavery. So VC would walk through the town in Charleston, South Carolina, telling black folk, get that hump out of your back. Straighten up. Be respectful. Take care of your own people. Look out for your own people. Quit trying to worry about everybody and look out for yourselves. And VC was he was a big man too, a big broad man. He said, I'll break your back if I catch you bending over. And he planned an insurrection. And he called something like about 300 to 500 together to take over Charleston, South Carolina. But he told them up front, he said, let me tell you all something. He says, if I catch one black in this group trying to get meritorious manumission, he said, I'm going to snap your neck like a twig. And he planned a revolt. And unfortunately, again, 2 days before his revolt was supposed to occur, not only was he squealed on once, he was squealed on twice. So VC was picked up along with about 37 of his people and hung. Because again, they sold him out. Then by 1831, Nat Turner, you already know about, tried the same thing a few years later in 31. Nat Turner says that I'm not even going to go through those changes. I'm not going to do what VC did. I'm not going to do what Prosser did. I'm not even going to play that silly game. He said, what I'm telling you I'm going to do? He said, I'm going to break out of here. I'm getting me a knife, gun, sword, stick, tools, bricks, anything I can get. I'm killing anything I see that moves, crawls, jumps, walks, or talks. That's exactly what I'm quoting him. He says, I'm the rod and staff of God. I'm not playing these silly games. I'm tired. And so Turner started walking, saying he was a sword and the voice of God. He said, I'm going to kill anything I see moving. He killed 55 people, including his own master. And then the country got petrified again and sent the army in looking for him. They searched for Nat Turner for 2 months and couldn't find him. He hid out because he killed so many people. Until one day he needed food and went down to get some blacks to get some food. And guess what happened? Turned them in. And so that took care of Nat Turner. Same time, there's one other black, though, which is my hero. I don't know how much time I got. How much? Long as I want. Okay. Okay, thank you. You see, you all are so nice. That's why I love coming to this city. Boy, I swear. I love you. I'm going to move out here pretty soon. But my hero is John Horace. We start talking about inappropriate behavior versus appropriate behavior. Now, here's a black man at the same time period displayed what I call appropriate behavior. No Rodney King stuff, you see? John Horace was a runaway slave who would also run off to Florida in the early 1800s in the same period when VC and Turner and the rest of them were trying to revolt. John Horace was a big, burly, strong black man. He ran off to Florida. Contrary to what you hear all the time in the media about the Underground Railroad, all blacks trying to get north, get to the promised land. That's a part of that myth. Most blacks weren't that dumb. Why would they want to go all the way across go to the north 1,000 miles to a hostile white country when they could run off to Florida, which is Spanish territory, 20 miles away or 2 feet away? So some of the smarter blacks of our relatives ran off to Florida because that was Spanish territory. And they got down and they interbred and intermixed with the Seminole. Now, you all might ask me why about Seminoles. Now, Seminoles were also against blacks, a lot of them, but a lot of them were not. Seminoles were the most receptive Indians to do anything with blacks in the country. Why? Because you see, the word Seminole means runaway slave. Okay? And they were also runaways. They interbred with blacks. They were a mixture of blacks. So they were very receptive to black folk. And so they started fighting in that area to fight the United States because the United States, they wanted to go down there and try to get the slaves back. That's what they were sending General Andrew Jackson to Florida for, to get the slaves. Because you see, blacks down there were coming across the border periodically with the Indians, raiding, killing whites, and getting their people free. Now, why is that important? Because you see, when I talked about early inappropriate behavior in Africa, the reason they enslaved black folk originally was because our leaders in Africa had given the impression that I don't care about other black folk. And they hauled all those blacks around the world because they knew in their hearts they would never see a shipload of Africans coming to get them back. They never suspected that Africans would come to save Africans. But that's why they didn't try to enslave Indians, because they knew if they didn't enslave Indians, Indians would come get their people. But they knew that black leadership in Africa had already said, you can have them, I don't want them, I won't come to get them. And so when the blacks went off into the South, in Florida, they were coming across the border, raiding those plantations along Alabama and the Georgia border there, South Carolina border, taking their people, taking them back to down to Florida, getting them free. But John Horse was a leading hero to me. Now this black hooked up, he became sort of like the second in charge in Florida. The chief at that time, through the 1820s and 1830s, was a chief named Osceola. Osceola had about 3 sons that were very active also, fighting white intrusion into Florida to get slaves back. His number 1 son was a white, a mixture of black and white. His name was Wildcat. And Osceola himself, if you all don't know it, Osceola was married to a black woman. You might see Osceola's pictures in all the museums as an Indian. They don't ever tell you that he was married to a black woman and had a mixed group. And he married to a black woman. His black woman's name was Morning Dew, if you're interested in knowing it. Morning Dew was the one, and that's what triggered the Seminole Wars. They don't tell you that in your history books either. So going back and forth down there, they were trying to get the Indians back. Trying to get the slaves back from the Indians. And they kept sending the federal troops in there. And Andrew Jackson was one of the primary generals that always wanted to go out there and fight Indians. He loved to fight Indians. He's known as the Indian fighter. And that's why you have Jacksonville, Florida. Because he was going in there, again, fighting Indians and trying to get blacks back. I'm
going to pause that real quick, right? Because I kind of want to have a sort of a discussion, right? There was a lot that was said. Can you guys hear me clearly? Okay, I'm assuming you can hear me clearly. The reason why I wanted to play that particular speech was, in today's day and age, we see a lot of inappropriate behavior. We see some of our own people selling our own people out. We see feminism coming through, right, with this whole Kamala Harris situation. And there's a battle between the young and the old. There's a lot going on. And essentially what the speech is about, for the most part, and giving with examples of how, hey, one person revolt, our own people sold them people out. The inappropriate behavior can be a roadblock to empowerment, because it's literally the name of the speech. The inappropriate behavior can lead to the Black American collective being stagnant. And that's not something that I'm about personally. I don't know about some people. Maybe some people are about that, but I'm not about that. And at times I kind of feel like we don't stop to think about how our behaviors, how we deal with people, can ultimately affect everybody. How I act on this app, you may not feel like it affects you, but it's definitely affecting somebody, probably in this room or somebody else sitting in another room. How we deal with each other, how we do business with each other, plays a major role in how we act towards one another. So I hope that maybe, like, by listening to this speech, that we gather some kind of insight about what is appropriate and what is inappropriate behavior. Now, in one of the business spaces, we had this thing up here, and it's called Code of Conduct, or the Black Code, right? And I'll read this. It says, "We do not steal from one another. We do not kill one another. We do not sell or offer drugs to one another. We do combine our dollars and buy collectively as a group. We protect our own women and children first. We educate our own at every chance. We do not fight one another. Brothers protect and build up another. Sisters protect and build up one another. Brothers build up and protect sisters. Sisters protect and build up brothers. We look for every opportunity to start our own business serving the needs of the people first. That's what that says. It's up there in the Jumbotron for some of you guys who may see it. I shouldn't be fighting with you as a black American. I shouldn't be fighting with my own people. And I shouldn't be fighting with my own people. I shouldn't have to tussle with my own people. I shouldn't have to do a lot of things negatively with my own people. Understanding your position and where you at and where you stand in America really should be more of a motivation for some people to progress. Buying up the block, tapping into those industries and resources that we don't have, being able to have some kind of economic freedom, being able to have policies and politicians that specifically advocate for black Americans. Dr. Carl Anderson gave 5 economic steps. And I played it yesterday in a space. Was it yesterday? I think it was yesterday. And I still got that clip. That's cool. But the whole entire point, guys, is realizing the okie doke when you see it. Realizing the okie doke when you see it. I don't know how many people feel like they see or they don't see the okie doke, but it's interesting how I feel some of our Black American family has managed to fall for the okie doke and now are upset at the decisions that they've made, like buyer's remorse. I'll even throw this out here. Why is it that there are some Black Americans that are more prone to want to be more accepted by white society than their own people? White people are not saviors. White folks are not saviors. They've never done anything to save us as a community. In fact, they've done more harm than good. Anybody that's managed to step in and follow in the way of Black America has not done any good. They've done harm. So why would I worry about how they feel or what they think about me at all as a Black American? I wouldn't. We're gonna get into this. If you guys want to come up and speak, go ahead and come up and speak.
River right outside Tallahassee, they had a fort there called Fort Negro, where most of the blacks were living, staying there, and they sent the federal troops down there to get the slaves back. Then the federal boat came up the Chattahoochee River to Fort Negro, and most of the blacks were out with the Indians raiding and fighting, and left the women and kids there. And so the federal troops fired on Fort Negro, one shot, and a shot rolled into the armory and set off the explosion and blew up the entire fort, and was nothing in there but black women and children. And that really made them hostile. The blacks were hostile this time. So now, that triggered the second Seminole War. After that, they decided to have a truce. They said, we have a truce if we sit down with Osceola and his warriors, John Horse and the rest of them. And at that point in time, they met. Before they met, they went and kidnapped Morning Dew and told Osceola that if you want your wife back, you better turn some of those black slaves loose and meet with us. And when Osceola went to the meeting to discuss getting his wife back, they kidnapped him and put him in prison. I think up in Fort Sumter, South Carolina. He died of consumption and exposure. And so at that point in time, John Horse and Wildcat went berserk. Then they started fighting. They fought all the way throughout Florida. And finally, they ran them out of Florida. They went out west and led some that whole movement called the Trail of Tears, all the way out to Oklahoma Territory. And but the only people fighting in this country against the United States at that time was John Horse and Wildcat and his band of blacks. They had carried their own women and kids with them. That is the only black man in the history of this nation, and I'm sorry to say no school teaches that. That's the only black man in America that's ever stood up to America and fought him, and not as a slave, but as a man. Nobody else has ever done it. John Horse fought the United States for 50 years. They fought him all out west. They chased him all down through the west, through Oklahoma, through Texas, and finally chased him into Mexico. He went into Mexico and stayed there for about 5 or 6 years and came back again, he and Wildcat. They tried to set up their little village again, but the whites out there, the racists kept raping.
Governor, you there?
Good morning, Kush. Good morning, everybody. How are you today?
Oh, still black. How are
It's
you?
been, I mean, overworked and underpaid. But anyway, I've been listening to the space. It's been a great space. But I wanted to, you said inappropriate behavior. Now, throughout history, in the context of what Dr. Claude Anderson is talking about, you got to remember coming out of slavery, what was the only natural resource that we had to profit off of? It's that ism. The ism was born coming out of slavery for black people. It's been written over time and things like that. And that's where the divide actually comes in when you talk about even the gender war being inappropriate behavior. So as we listen to the history, never forget that the only resource that we had once they said, all right, y'all are free to go, was each other. I'm gonna keep listening.
No, I definitely agree. And like, so look, the whole gender war thing. Like, look, for me, it's one of the second most inappropriate behaviors I think a person could ever display. And I'll tell you why. If we supposed to be working as a collective, why would I want to go against the black man? That doesn't help me in no way, shape, or form at all. Go ahead, sis. You got the floor.
Good morning. Peace and blessings. I was about to touch on.
Damn, I can't even hear you speak.
Can you hear me?
Sis, drop down and come back up, because I can't hear you. They are hating, boy.
What you eating, Golden Grams?
I mean some oatmeal. Just like you need to eat your what they call that, cream of wheat.
I never like cream of wheat.
That's good. And,
Um,
and let and let me guess, you like grits, right?
of course.
Oh, y'all so backward. That's inappropriate behavior. Go ahead, sis. See if you can say something now.
Okay, I was saying peace and blessings to you, my sister. Um, I was listening, and I wanted to mention on that gender wars. That wasn't even our struggle as the Black fundamental family. That originally came from white women in Europe, and lesbians took it on here in America who were white. So when they see us unify and see that unity and see that strength of a leader and a male head in the family, they're threatened. Our unity threatens them. And if we can get back to that, excuse me, the weather's messing with me. If we could get back to that core moral foundation of the man being the head, the leader of the family, the example of the family, is not discrediting or discounting our role as the woman. But if we got back to that core foundation of the Black family, with the male being the head and the woman being the helper, and the children knowing their responsibilities, and spread that about, we would be untouched. If we get back to educating our own children instead of letting other people educate our children, we would be unstoppable. And I wish our people could get back to that. I've been speaking to young people all over from gang members to college students, and they feel like that is being missed, and they're trying to build back up on that. And when you try to build on that, then mainstream media and government try to make it seem like the only thing Black people have are broken families, drug dealers, and people in prison, which we know is absolutely not true. So we got to get back to pushing back for our families and our communities, and not being afraid to speak up, to build up, so we can keep going up as a Black community.
I 1,000% agree with that. Like it like even with this Command Me Harris situation, like I'm gonna tell you this, I don't think her husband's the head of the household. And it's apparent to see. Who wants to be called the first husband? Like what? Go ahead, Governor, and then we'll get to Blood Pack.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to the back of what the nice lady just said. Um, my grandmother grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma, um, in the 1940s, and her parents they survived Black Wall Street. People heard me say that plenty of times, but people don't really talk about post, race massacre and post race massacre in that community alone, and it could have happened in many other communities. The level of protection from the Black man to the Black woman in her mind, because my grandmother had said it went down because Kush, have you ever heard of the term slumming?
Yes.
Okay, that's when the white people go into Black neighborhoods and they fuck off, right? Excuse my French. Uh, but that was occurring where the white boys were coming down into uh they were coming down to Greenwood, and they were picking up the women from their marital houses. And when those women would come back, they would look at the man like, "Hey, yo, you ain't gonna do nothing about this." So it becomes it's just as we're talking about inappropriate behavior, at that point, when you feel like well, I'm damned if I do, I'm damned if I don't, because I really don't want to hang from a tree. Because my great uncle, his death date is my birthday. He died September 26th, 1940. They found his head crushed on the train track after he married a so-called white woman in Tulsa, Oklahoma. They tried to hide him in Missouri. So, like I said, Kush, I'm here for the conversation. I've been Black all my life on both sides. You know what I mean? And my family has been here since we've been here. So I'm here for the conversation. Go ahead with your show. I'm gonna finish drinking this Coke.
I'm dead. I'm dead. But no, most definitely I agree. Like, okay, like it it just kind of mind boggles me how the perception of inappropriate behavior, people normalize it. Like it's normal for you to want to go at your fellow Black Americans. It's not normal. Every other ethnic group is able to practice some kind of stance as a collective, but it's only taught to us based on maybe something that some of us don't practice, the importance of being and doing business, networking, and not go against each other. But Bullet Pack, you got the floor if you want to speak.
Peace and blessings, Lauren Kush. Peace to the room. Actually, I didn't have anything to say at first. I couldn't hear, and then I kept getting kicked out of the room. So I just thought I saw the time where it was like, "Come up on stage." Um, but really quick, I do want to say personally, although I am a future billionaire, and I do see myself as a commas kind of woman. Like I like to have a lot of commas in my life. I also was raised to believe and have seen that the man should be the head of the household. And I can see where the value of a good woman, like to be a strong to be okay. I hate these words. I hate the term strong black man, right? But to really be a mentally and physically empowered, ethnically black man in America is a rare gift. They have turned that from a daily occurrence into a rarity. And I can see now, being a little bit older, um, how a good woman can really set up like a, being a helpmate, a good helpmate can help even the most daily average man feel more confident and step into the limelight. Like a woman can literally speak life into her man and speak depression and but lift him up. It just greet him when he comes home from work. Hi honey, how was your day? Missed you. You're home. Good to see you. Come on in. Welcome home. That makes a world of difference in a man's day and life. And if he has peace and comfort and joy and uplifting, then that makes him an even better, stronger man, not just for the family, but for the outward. And I understand now why they put highways through our communities and why they've kept us apart. And so I'm glad that you're having this opportunity so that we can say, we can talk about the decrepitness, but then talk about the amazing power behind a unified family. And when a man, a good, a good man is the head of the household, it's so sexy. And I love my plan. Thank you.
I appreciate that. I think overall, really, like respectfully, like a collective, a Black American collective, where we can put our dollars together, get a politician to advocate for us the way we need to advocate overall together. And that's to me, that's the best thing ever. Having an opportunity to start your generational wealth and not have to worry about people trying to put policies in place to try to shield you from it.
Are you in the matrix? Is it just me?
Oh Lord, can y'all hear me?
Okay, there you are. Say that last thing again. I'm so sorry.
Oh, they've been out here hating, boy. I tell you. No, I was like having the opportunity to start your generational wealth without somebody trying to play a hand in the destruction of it is also a great thing. Because white people don't have to worry about that. Like they don't. When I envision our collective moving forward, right, and not exercising inappropriate behavior, I see Black Americans owning vast amounts of land. I see Black Americans owning vast amounts of businesses. Us actually being able to do business with each other, not having the infighting as much. You know what I'm saying? Like we're always gonna fight. That's just natural. That's just what family do. But not having that infighting would, man, we motherfuckers could move mountains. Go ahead, Governor.
Yeah, I do agree with stop the infighting. Because really, I take like I said, I take everything back to what I'm saying, that good old blade. Just imagine, Kush, it's like 1930. Your great granddaddy, or your great granddaddy, he just put a little joint out there on that Indiana blade, you know what I'm saying, to bring back some change. And here goes this white trick. He sits there and go, "What? You're giving your money to that man, and you let me do this, and this." Now he's putting ideas in her head, ideas of separation, ideas of herself ever evolving over the situation and circumstances and away from that man. So then by like 1940, that's where you start getting those man laws. Now your great granddaddy, he ended up in a facility, broke down your home. It's mechanisms that have been put in front of us to separate us and cause confusion. Just like the in the 70s, when literally I believe this had to do solely with home ownership for black women. They started giving them bank accounts. That caused the divide. Now, today it's normalized, but back then, I've read reports and I've seen words from my grandfather that was like, you know what, when they did that, it was over. So if you really look at the way things are being ran right now, they're not being ran on a community basis, but an individual basis. Individual empowerment. What we are speaking on and what we are talking on is group economics from, kind of like at a micro level. But you got to remember, for 3 generations, it's really just been how do you self-identify? Look at the laws they got now. You can call yourself a tree, you can call yourself a plant, you can call yourself a man, you can call yourself a woman. It's all about the individual. It's not about the community and not about the collective. And you still have people that look like you and I that buy into that idea.
Yeah, and all that. Not I identify as a train when I'm really a bus. That's the. It sounds funny, but it'd be crazy to me because you know what's funny. Even in that aspect, right? Like they get a lot of protection that I don't think that they understand, that they realize. Man, it's just a lot of buffoonery that goes on. But again, like I said, y'all, the entire point of the space is to understand that first of all, inappropriate behaviors can block empowerment of a community, of an ethnic group, of our ethnic group. Continuing to act in such fashion will not contribute to anybody being able to get to where we're trying to go. Bloodpack, you had anything you wanted to say? I saw you came back.
No, I just can't hear in the listening section.
Damn, yeah, they really messing with the space. I'm sorry, guys.
No, we care. We're trying. I'm trying to hear, so I came up here to hear.
No, you're good. They really out here messing with the space. That's why everybody left. But yeah, man, I'm probably not gonna keep this too much open too much longer. But needless to say, I don't know, man. It just behooves me how like this speech was. I'm pretty sure this speech was done way before I was even born, and it's still prevalent today in 2024. So it goes to show you that not too much has changed. It's time to start making things shake. It's time to start making things move forward. I'm not fighting with nobody no more on this app. It ain't even worth it. But does anybody got any last words or anything like that?
It's always blessings to you, and it's a glorious game that I've never left. Um, and just being able to speak to people on an honest basis. Because I remember when I first came on here talking about this ism, niggas was like, you, what the hell you talking about, man? Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, look, the more that we have people like Kush opening it up, you can see that we have always been gamed up. Now, why we started adopting the tricking, I don't know. Maybe that should be something Kush you talk about because that's inappropriate behavior. Because we were never supposed to be the tricks. We were always supposed to be ganged up. And that's inappropriate behavior in itself because it's putting that woman, not not to say that you're not supposed to put the woman, first and foremost, but guess what? You're not supposed to put her in front of your own values and principles because you're a man. That's more inappropriate behavior, but that's on both sides. But I appreciate you, Kush.
Yeah, you smell good. Does anybody have anything else they wanted to say? That is hilarious. All right, y'all. We're gonna finish up the speech. Um. Also, hey, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel with Wake and Bake with Kush. Don't forget to hit your space reminders tomorrow. We're gonna have a conversation, a small political conversation about whether Trump chose the right VP, and then later on that day, right, double space Wednesday. That doesn't happen often, so make sure you're there when this happens. But tomorrow we're gonna also have an open discussion about the Boule versus Black America. We're gonna see how that goes. If it turns into a debate, it turns into a debate. I'm all for it, right? And also, don't forget about Chef C's YouTube channel on their next. Make sure y'all check them out. Check out Chef C. Check out the YouTube channel if you have not. And again, don't forget to subscribe to Wake and Bake with Kush. Do.
In their camps, shooting them and killing them. He kept fighting, and they finally killed Wildcat, shot him in the back with a shotgun and killed him. And then John Horse finally just gave up and got on his horse, allegedly just rolled off back into Mexico. You never heard from him again. But he fought for 50 years, the only black man. You can talk about any civil rights leader you want to. If you had a hero, that's the only hero we ever had that fought and says, I'm not a slave and I won't take it. I'm not Rodney King, anybody else. And so, they found nobody ever knew what happened to him, but he rolled off. That was John Horse. Now, this whole meritorious manumission policy is in effect, moving along at the same time, this control system. About 1852, a lady named Harriet Beach Stover wanted to write about it. So she then wrote about the whole thing. She interviewed a guy whose name was Henderson, what you all know as Uncle Tom. He then told about the story. She wrote a book called Uncle Tom's Cabin. But in that book, contrary to what most people think, Uncle Tom was not the bad guy. The bad guy was Sambo. And so I'm asking you all as my brothers and sisters, please in the future don't call a black guy who you know is worthless and trifling. Don't call him an Uncle Tom. That's complimenting him. Call him his real name, what he's entitled to, and that's a Sambo. Any black person sells his own people out and will do them in, he is a Sambo. Now, what is a Sambo again? Going back to meritorious manumission 1710, the whole conditioning process, the whole brainwashing system, the whole social engineering system says that you must teach black people to see the world through the eyes of whites. See everything through their eyes. You must accept their values, their superiority, whatever they think and feel, and that way we got you contained. And that's why when you see somebody like Colin Powell talking about running for office, they say, well, you can run for office if you see the things the way we want to see them. If you want to be conservative, you can run for office. If you want to place a lot of importance on abortion, you can run for office. If you want to talk about being anti-taxes, you can run for office, which means if you see things the way we see them as a black person, you're safe. You're acceptable. And if you don't want to do it that way, then become an athlete or an entertainer. So therefore, you identify the rest of those blacks in the country. You stay away from them. They're bad. And you start going on, you try to go get a penny out of an athlete and entertainer, do something for the black community. They're going to do it. Their advisors won't let them do it. The agents won't do it. Their promotion people won't let them do it. They're going to identify with your community because, again, they have now already died and gone to heaven. Okay, so when Harriet Beecher Stowe put out her book, what she tried to tell black folk is that Uncle Tom was not a bad guy. See, Uncle Tom, you read that book, and most blacks, 90% of blacks never read it. They always call another black, he's an Uncle Tom, he's an Uncle Tom. He's not an Uncle Tom. If you read the book Uncle Tom was a guy who would not beat black women. Uncle Tom in that book was a guy who would not beat other blacks to make them pick more cotton. Uncle Tom was a guy who would come in at night and take cotton out of his own bag and put it in other black folks' bags so they wouldn't get whippings at night. Uncle Tom was a guy who would not tell where black folk were hiding when they went across the river and they broke free as slaves. But Simon Legree, the white slave master, had a black that followed him around named Sambo, who always says, you show me, give me the right, I'll show you how to trees the coons. I'll show you where they hides. And see, that's the guy. See, his role responsibility is going back to meritorious manumission. I told you about when you got to protect white folks' property and protect their wealth. He says, I will protect it and find it for you. And that's why you read in the movies and books that came out after Uncle Tom, you always had a black guy, a black slave, running down the road saying, Master, master, here comes the army. Let's hide our silver and gold. And you all said, our? How did it get to be our? He always wants to say something that doesn't even belong to him. And that showed up all through history. And today you got the same kind of personality doing it. And now he's not saying let's hide our silver and gold. He's called himself a conservative. I'm also against affirmative action for black folk. I'm against quotas. I'm against preferential treatment. Even had one running around talking about he want to pass a law to stop black folk from discriminating against whites. You still got that kind of personality that always wants to protect something, protect the strong. You always got that kind of Sambo personality. And nowadays, the best way to get rich is to say, I'm gonna practice that masters, gold and silver, and I'm gonna be against them black folk. I guarantee I can get you a radio talk show. I can get you a television show. I can even get you an appointment to the Supreme Court. Okay? You tell me how many black folk you want to sell out, I guarantee I'll show you how to make money. Because you see, every ethnic group, every religious group, every racial group, every political group has always made money off of black folk. Okay? And what I'm going to start talking about in Powernomics when I come back here in the fall is to show you all one thing. I'm going to tell you time is up. You have made, as a race, you made every religion, every ethnic group, every racial group rich. There is nobody else left on earth to make rich but yourselves. So that's all left. We got to do it for ourselves now. So don't give me this stuff about Dr. Anderson. That's the reverse discrimination. We are anti. You ain't anti nobody. You already made everybody rich. They always tell me, well, Dr. Anderson, what you're preaching isn't that segregation? Or let me tell y'all something. Starting again, back in 1850, blacks got hung up on that same mess, you know. By 1850, after Harriet Beecher Stover put out her book, here comes Frederick Douglass. He's going to take one path. He's going to go back now and try to pick up becoming an integrationist. He becomes an integrationist, since they excluded us in 1638, saying we should never be permitted to enjoy the fruits of white society, let's be integrationists and civil rights people. Let's make them let us in. So they started that top strand called integrationists, which will run Frederick Douglass, Booker T. Washington, then up to all your civil rights leaders and Martin Luther King and that whole group, all the way down the line to even your present day civil rights groups. They keep saying, we want access to whatever you own. We want to be included in whatever you own. Now you got another group that started after the book with Harriet Beecher Stover. They said they want to be segregationists. Then you got the more strongly willed persons like W.B. Du Bois. Then you got Martin Delany. You got Marcus Garvey. Then you got Malcolm X and Elijah Muhammad. They were going the other way saying, no, we want our separate stuff. Now, what I say by myself, and I know a lot of people might get upset when I say it, both groups were right and both groups were wrong. What I say is that it is not about integration. The issue is not segregation. The issue is congregation. It means aggregating. What it is called functional pluralism, which means we are not trying to integrate, we're not trying to segregate. No other group comes here and says, I want to integrate and segregate. What they're saying is that if I come together and concentrate as a people, concentrate my power and my wealth and my resources, I can compete. That's what they're talking about. And please, since I love all of you all, and I'm going to move here with you, don't let them trick you all anymore with them upside down glasses. They used to ask me that during integration about Dr. Anderson. Now, hold it. Now, you're at the governor's office in Florida. You represent the whole state in education. Now, what do you want during integration? You got Malcolm X talking about segregation. You got Martin Luther King talking about integration. Why don't you all make up your mind? Which do you want? I said, I don't want either one. I want the same rights and privileges everybody else got to go to either one of the sticks. Don't try to put me on one end of the stick. What I want more than anything else is to bring my people together and say, get all the power and wealth together like everybody else. And that way, quit trying to try to define us. You see, every Asian, for instance, when he leaves his homeland, he comes to America. He looks in the mirror and says, I'm going to America. And when I get to America, I'm going to find me a community of people that either look like me, or I'm going to build me a community of people that look like me, that have my values, my culture, and my language. Nobody asked him about integration or segregation. When Hispanics come to this country, they would say, I'm going in, I'm going to build me a community of people that look like me or sound like me. And like the Asians who set up little who set up little Cambodias, little Vietnam, Chinatowns in every city. The Hispanics come in, they'll build little Mexicos, little Havanas, little Hialeahs. I can go across America and find German towns, French towns, Greek towns, Polish towns, but I can't find a black town. Because of our inappropriate behavior pattern with the rod, we keep trying to integrate. Nobody else is trying to integrate. Why would you try to integrate? And I just told you in 1790, the law says in the Constitution that the majority will win and the minority will lose. If the majority will win and the minority will lose, why would you ever do anything that breaks yourself into smaller pieces when you already a plan systematically program the minority? Now you got other people in a category called minority. You got women, gay, Hispanic, anything you want. Midgets, Hispanics, anything you want. But nobody goes by there and say how many you can have. You've ever heard anybody say we can only have so many women in the country, or so many midgets in the country, or so many gay in the country, or so many the only thing they say is you must have is so many blacks. We're the only people. And see, and another thing you got to understand, I told you last time I was here, is that you got to remember that you are the only non-immigrants in America. The only non-immigrants. So when you start using a word for yourself, always call yourself a non-immigrant. Don't call yourself anything else other than that. Don't call yourself a minority. And to some degree, if you really want to be slick, I would even call myself an African American. Why not? I asked one girl in Texas, she said, I noticed you never call yourself an African American. She said, I said, why? She said, why is that? I said, because I'm black. You see? She said,
Hey, Black
but
Majority.
why? But are you still an African American? I said, no.
Hey, Black Majority. Did you have anything you wanted to add? Black Majority, you there?
Hey, or can you hear me? Because I got some noise around me right now. If you could go past me for a second, I'll come back up.
Okay. No, I hear you. You're fine.
Okay, cool, man. So thank you for playing that. Man, shout out to Dr. Claude Anderson. Do you have any idea what year that's from? Is that like 80s, 90s?
It had to have been from the 80s. This is definitely before I was born. Let
Yeah,
me see.
because the thing that I mean everything I'm hearing, and the craziest thing is I've never heard this guy until I got on Twitter. Because even when I spent like 2 years on Facebook, I would rarely get these video clips like you get over here. But shout out to him for being so visionary, so ahead of the curve, understanding everything that is real power, real authority, and not just whatever they sell to us. Because the reality is, politically in this country, they're really just selling us nothing, absolutely nothing. And if we stay in a nothing position politically, economically, we will end up with absolutely nothing. And these things are so predictable at this point. And I love the fact that he was predicting things that he could see because he was really tapped in and immersed in all the information. I just part of me listening to that says, what will it take? Because if he was talking about that decades ago and others were talking about it even before that, And then now we have this new crop of folks that are really trying to get our people to understand where the power is. But it's like, man, you get a couple people who connect to it, a couple people who connect to it, but the masses really still are not even understanding and connecting to it. It's almost as if there's something blocking us from the blessing of having this power in this country. I really don't know what it is. It may be spiritual, it may be, something more different than that, but it really is as simple as 1,000 people moving to one area and all working together and sharing commerce and education and letting their children get to know each other in community and communion, and then building out from that. And might not even take 1,000 people. It could take 10 people or 100 people or whatever the number is, to just establish it and build it out. And for whatever reason, we keep chasing the bag instead of chasing the power. And I hope it changes. But shout out and salute to Dr. Claude Anderson.
No, most definitely. And that's the thing. Like, look, when we talk about things that are like blocking us as a community overall, like I've always felt like this. There's been things intentionally put to always sabotage us specifically. And what he said earlier in this speech was that everything that was done to us was not done by accident. So when you have a ethnic group of people and you start doing little things like, let's throw out the feminism here. Let's throw out that trick bag. Let's cause dissension real quick. Let me show that I could dominate you, that kind of thing, and even make you sell your own people out. Like like things like that. Even though it was going on way back then, it's still going on today, and it's a damn shame. It's a damn shame to like see it, and it kind of breaks my heart to an extent, right? Like when I talk about buying up the block, when I say things like generational wealth, not generational trauma, when I be like, hey, why don't we actually go ahead and support our black businesses? There's a reason why I'm saying that. There's a whole reason why I'm saying that, because people want to jump into politics before they address the economic issues that are going on, and you have the power to address the economic issue. No politician, no mayor, no governor is going to do that for us. I can't rely on them to do that. Hell, Kamala Harris just sat there and said that her whole Lift Act was for families of color, first generational home buyers. That's not me. I'm not a person of color. I'm not a first generational home buyer. It's not me. So it doesn't. It's not applicable to me. It's not applicable not just to me, but it's not applicable to any of y'all sitting in this room or any Black Americans that may be listening. That trick back right there, that was that, hey, I just need a vote kind of stuff. And I'm just going, I'm not, she even said it herself. I'm not just going to do anything specifically for black people. When it's black people who have been intentionally sabotaged, it's been black folks that are the ones that out there experiencing police brutality. It's black folks that have to worry about their children going missing and their organs being sold on the black market. It's black folks that have to worry about stuff like that. And still, guess what? They still ain't said nothing about reparations. But they asking for a vote. But they're asking for a vote. Like that's been the main thing on this app. Well, I'm gonna vote for this person. I'm gonna vote for that person. Or I'm gonna sit on the couch. Either way, I don't hear reparations on no side. So what are
Hey,
we doing?
I'm screaming reparations czar. Reparations czar, federal level and state level. These governors can appoint a reparations czar, California, New York, and wherever, and the president can appoint a reparations czar. And it doesn't necessarily need to be about reparations, because the title will be something different, but it will be about advocating for the lineage policy at these executive levels wherever we have significant numbers, Georgia, etc., Mississippi, and that is not party, but policy. It's nonpartisan. Any party, no matter who you're out there waving the flag for, in this political cycle demand that they appoint a reparation czar for the lineage to advocate for policy for our people at these executive levels.
Thank you. Like, I mean, like for real, like what irks me, and before I get to Black Pack, this irks my soul, right? Is that even on this app, we can sit up here, we could jaw jack, and we can, talk about some tomfoolery and get a little bit into politics. But baby, when I tell you that the people that are willing to out there to help the overall community progress, I don't see a lot of people willing to do that. And the reason why I say that is this: there's a lot more bullshit going on this app than it is more constructive stuff. Like, niggas will sit in a room all day about some bullshit, but we could be over here talking about some business, and the room be like damn near almost empty. That, to me, that's inappropriate behavior. You can't complain about a situation that you're in if you don't want, if the information's out there and you don't want to take it. And that's the entire point. Here's the information here. I want my Black American family to learn, and I want us to all win. Because if you win, I win. If you eat, I eat. That's how that will work. Go ahead, Blood Pack.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, and you smell pretty.
You smell awesome, as usual. Yeah, let's all take just a 1, 2, 3, just deep breath, inhale and exhale. And remember that this is the first elections that we're going into knowing that we are exempt from unfriendly laws. That means state and federal. So we have, it's August. I think that's like 4-ish months to better understand what that means. And so I'm actually putting up in I'm going to put up in the Jumbotron uh, Dr. Hashaki Nichols, the founder of the Redemption Party or founder Redemption Party. Oh, I just figured that out. It's 2 words. Um, she and I did a YouTube thing, a video with BTV, and it kind of explains more like what that means. What does it mean to be exempt from unfriendly legislation? How did this come about? Right? Like, where does this stem from? Turns out we were always supposed to be exempt from unfriendly legislation. So, although this does sound very scary and, it is doom, we are in a war, let's also remember that there is a shining bright light that this is some bullshit. Like, middle fingers up, right? And we're exempt. We're walking in with our exemptions, and it's going to be all right. Amen. Bye-bye.
Now you left with the amen. This nigga. Go ahead, sis. You got the floor. Sister Owens, you
Yeah, I'm
there?
sorry. I'm trying to eat too. I gotta nourish my soul as well as my mind. But I just want to touch on something you said about now this election. We know how to go in. We have to look at things differently. I was just explaining to a group of young black men, we're training down here to take over these Republican seats and precinct committeeman seats. We have to play the offense and the defense. And what I mean by that, we have to put ourselves in a position where we're on both sides of the line, the front of the battle and the back end. These young men are taking over these seats. They're going in quiet. You know how they feel like the quieter you are, the less threatening you are, but they're slowly changing the laws. Um, Everybody doesn't have to be radical. Now, the ones that's on the other side, of the fight. Those are the radical ones. But what they don't know is that they're both sides are playing to the middle. So we have to play the offense and the defense to save our community. And while we're doing that, like you said, if you eat, we eat. I love that. In order for us to eat, we have to have financial education. One brother was talking about how the banks started giving women checking accounts to separate from the man. I've had a separate account for my husband, but that was our rainy day account. And when he did fall ill and get sick, those weeks where he told me, baby, keep that little check, and I was saving him, that saved us in the end. So it's not about his money, her money. It's still our money. But if you're financially educated, then we'll know exactly what to do with the money. So we have got to do a catch-up game on educating those generations behind us about generational wealth, financial education, real estate. The earth doesn't get any bigger. The more land you buy, the earth's still not going to grow. You have more power. It's power in land. If you call your congressman, your mayor, if you're not a landowner of some sort, not necessarily a house, get you a little zero lot, get you a plot of raw land, and you speak with them, they don't take you seriously unless you're a landowner. So those are things we have to start teaching the generations behind us and educating ourselves on as well. I'll be 52 on the 28th of this month. And I just learned these things within the last 10 or 15 years of my life. So it's not too late to learn. And I say, educate and pass that knowledge on and not gatekeep with our people.
Yeah, because gatekeeping it don't help nobody. It don't help nobody. That was a song. I just made that up. You're welcome.
King talking about integration. Why don't y'all make up your mind? Which do you want? I said, I don't want either one. I want the same rights and privileges that everybody else got to go to either one of the sticks. Don't try to put me on one end of the stick. What I want more than anything else is to bring my people together and say, get all the power and the wealth together like everybody else. And that way, they'll quit trying to try to define us. You see, every Asian, for instance, when he leaves his homeland, he comes to America. He looks in the mirror and says, I'm going to America. And when I get to America, I'm going to find me a community of people that either look like me or I'm going to build me a community of people that look like me, that have my values, my culture, and my language. Nobody asked him about integration or segregation. When Hispanics come to this country, they would say, I'm going in, I'm going to build me a community of people that look like me or sound like me. And like the Asians who set up little who set up little Cambodias, little Vietnam, Chinatowns in every city. The Hispanics come in, they'll build little Mexicos, little Havanas, little Hialeahs. I can go across America and find German towns, French towns, Greek towns, Polish towns, but I can't find a black town. Because of our inappropriate behavior pattern with the Rodney, we keep trying to integrate. Nobody else is trying to integrate. Why would you try to integrate? And I just told you in 1790, the law says in the Constitution that the majority will win and the minority will lose. If the majority will win and the minority will lose, why would you ever do anything that breaks yourself into smaller pieces when you're already a plan systematically programmed the minority? Now you got other people in a category called minority. You got women, gay, Hispanic, anything you want. Midgets, Hispanics, anything you want. But nobody goes by there and say how many you can have. You've ever heard anybody say we can only have so many women in the country, or so many midgets in the country, or so many gay in the country, or so many the only thing they say is you must have is so many blacks. We're the only people. And see, and another thing you got to understand, I told you last time I was here, is that you got to remember that you are the only.
What's up, Taxwell Benjamin? What's up?
Good morning, everybody. Hey, Sister MF Kush. Oh man, you interrupted the
No, you stupid.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. Don't get caught on your job.
Yeah, I'll be getting in trouble at my job. Get off the phone. You're not supposed to be on your phone.
I'm dead. You had anything that you wanted to add, or you want me to continue playing the clip?
Yeah, I want to speak to the clip. Dr. Claude Anderson was absolutely right, but we had a lot of people, even people who claim that they read his books, pushing back on the importance of politics, forming organizations. We don't want the white man to know what we're doing, so we don't want to be organized. We just want to do it clandestinely. Now, some things you might have to do clandestinely, but you got to have real organizations to do a lot of the things that need to be done. And our people always push back against that, and they need to stop it.
Thank you. Benjamin, did you have anything you wanted to say? Thumbs up, thumbs down? I know you normally don't speak. Okay. All right, we're going to get into finish this up. And that's just kind of where we're at with it. Thank you guys for coming in.
Non-immigrants in America. The only non-immigrants. So when you start using a word for yourself, always call yourself a non-immigrant. Don't call yourself anything else other than that. Don't call yourself a minority. And to some degree, if you really want to be slick, I would even call myself an African American. Why not? I asked one girl in Texas, but she said, I noticed you never call yourself an African American. She said, I said, why? She said, why is that? I said, because I'm black. You see? She said, but why? But are you still an African American? I said, no. Because you see, when I go look at the definition of African American, the whole north part of Africa is a continent. That's not a country, that's a continent. People coming in from El Salvador, and they're El Salvadorians. When you say you're from Africa, I'm an African. Where in Africa? Do y'all understand what I'm saying? Where in Africa? And plus that, and worse than that, is that the whole north part of Africa, those coming in the country, they are Arabs, Palestinians, Chaldeans, Egyptians. They're classified, those are whites coming in, but they also call themselves African Americans. When I go down through different parts of the west coast of Africa, I got people coming in from west coast of Africa. They are Pakistanis and Indians, East Indians, but they call themselves African Americans. When I go down to whites coming in from South Africa, they call themselves African Americans. And what they've done again is smother the issue over. So when I go look at it, when I go break it open, it's like cracking open an egg. Like when I look inside the word minority, I look inside of African American, I find the number of blacks that came into the country last year out of 26,000 African Americans, I only find something like 4,000 blacks. And that's why they're going to put the moves on you again. What they want to do is to cover it up again so you can't figure out what's happening to black folks. So new term, they're going to say, well, we buried a lot of them under minorities, that concept. We buried a lot of them under the term Afro-American. Now let's come up with another term called multicultural. And Asiatic or Asia-Rasian or something, where nobody know what they are anymore. And see, if we bury them, see, nobody know what the conditions are for them anymore. They can't figure it out either. And see, that way we lock in the structural inequities. If racism, slavery, and Jim Crowism made whites 50-foot giants, and your problem is that whites got this much, you got that much, if you bury everything and smother it over, you'll never figure it out. You all gonna have to fight from now on to make sure that it's only black. Every issue is black, so you can find out what's happening to your people. They're gonna try to bury it because whites now got a choice. Either correct the structural inequities or hide it. And it's much cheaper to hide it. And one of the easiest way of hiding it is to co-opt your leadership, to pay off the black leadership and bring them inside the circle, and they're not gonna make issues over anything. Instead of functioning on as I said, your problem is the structural inequities. The structural inequities are so bad in America, and they have been so bad since slavery, that that civil rights and integration can't even reach black folk. They're so badly damaged and hurt. And I don't know why the blacks keep running around talking about we want civil rights and equality. You can't get equality if you're unequal. Unless, again, they put those glasses on you and turn them upside down, And all of a sudden you begin to see unequal as being equal. The worst kind of racism is the racism that pretends that unequals are equals. And that's what they've done to you. And they got this whole new concept called a colorblind society. And what colorblind society means, let's be blind to black folk, pretend we don't see them. And they're hiding and smothering it again for you. And that's what it means. Now, where did that come from? It came from some of the white civil rights think tanks out of Washington. After the civil rights movement, what they wanted to do was say, let's bury the issue with black folk. And they gave our civil rights leaders a chance after the civil rights movement to make the difference. They didn't take it. Our black leadership displayed inappropriate behavior coming out of the civil rights movement. Throughout the civil rights movement, when they should have been focusing on the real issue, they didn't do it. Instead of focusing on correcting the historical damage that had been inflicted on black folk, they started messing around with civil rights and integration and never touched the problem. Ran all over the country, thinking that by taking down the signs over the water fountains or the bathrooms about colored only or black only, that they were dealing with racism. They didn't even touch racism. Racism was 3 stories down. Getting a black folk to sit in a white restaurant or sit on the front of a bus has no meaning at all. The second thing they did was they never had a plan. They ran all over the country from one demonstration, one march to the next one, never had a national plan about what they're going to do when they get there and what the next generation of blacks are going to do. And thirdly, they never built an institution to carry out a national plan. And when they did that, whites then changed their policy on blacks. They figured out black folk had displayed this inappropriate behavior and missed the boat. So what they did then, they said, let's put the moves on them. Johnson then wrote a law saying you got to correct the conditions of black folk in 1965, what's called the Affirmative Action Bill. When that came out, they put the moves on us to smother the issue again. Affirmative action was supposed to have been intended to correct those structural inequities between blacks and whites that have occurred as a direct result of all those years of things I'm talking about. As soon as the bill came out, whites immediately started changing it and black leadership bought it. The issue was supposed to be going this way. Watch how they flip the glasses upside down on you. The issue was supposed to be correcting historical discrimination, what has happened to blacks historically by racism and discrimination. They switched and said, let's not talk about historical, let's talk about present day and the future. You're supposed to have been dealing with racism, which means group-based. They said, no, forget about that. Let's deal with individual discrimination. The issue was supposed to have been focusing on dealing with things that have happened to black folk. They changed it. No, let's deal with issues pertaining to everybody. Women, gays, handicapped, everything else. And when they did that, they destroyed affirmative action. Don't even waste your time even chasing affirmative action anymore. It's been destroyed. It was supposed to be helping black folk. Now, what the other groups did, they said now that somebody put out a law to help black folk, how do we become equal to blacks? And that's when the Hispanics jumped up this thing called Hispanic, the concept. Before that, we didn't have anything called Hispanic. But they thought in the early 60s that black folk might get some out of the civil rights movement. So what they did, they went to the table and came up with a whole term called Hispanic. They said, let's go all over the world and find everybody that speaks Spanish and pretend they're equal to black folk. And let's pretend that the Spanish language has been handicapped, Jim Crowed, enslaved, hung, lynched, decapitated, and everything else, and therefore is entitled to be treated like a black person. And they fabricated a new race called Hispanics. So now that means any person coming from Spain, Portugal, Philippines, any place, say, I'm a Hispanic, I'm equal to black folk. And the worst part about it, and then every time you hear a report about poverty, they'll go compare Hispanic poverty with black poverty. Nobody ever stops to hold a second. You got to quit playing that game. You're smothering the issue. The poverty on black folk is poverty that's been there for 400 years. That's the same old poverty you've been dealing with for 400 years, and you got rolling poverty. You keep having Hispanics coming into the country and comparing the poverty they're bringing into this country with the poverty that's been with black folk for 400 years.
Black Majority, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, if I could, really fast. So that was a very important point right there, if you could hear. So in the 60s, there is a man, and we had a space about him, but some Hispanic guy. He said he was inspired by the Black Panthers and the civil rights movement. And you can see pictures of him back then doing his Hispanic thing. This guy's been consistent since then, all the way up until today, talking about reclaiming the southwestern United States, talking about massive waves of immigrants from Mexico specifically to come back into the United States and to reclaim those 5 states: Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, and California. And because he has been consistently promoting that, he's a professor who travels around the country to different colleges promoting this. Because he's been consistent with it and the people listen to him, they now are the majority population in California and Texas, the number one and number three largest economies in our country, and probably within the top 10 on the planet Earth. And then they are very close to becoming a majority in New Mexico. So they only have Arizona and Nevada. And once those dominoes fall, you have northern Mexico within the United States. And so again, Dr. Claude Anderson, who's way visionary, way ahead of the curve, has been preaching this and telling people this, and we just didn't listen, and we just didn't do the things that we needed to do. And again, in this season where I feel like I've been preaching this thing for 6 years now, and it just feels like people are not going to do what we need to actually do to actually get the power, because there's no power at the federal government without having state power, without having a majority population within a state to send your representatives, not the ones that they select, but your actual representatives who are fabric of the community to DC to bring back the power and the resources and everything else that we need. So I wanted to highlight that because some people may have missed how important that statement was of the creation of this so-called Hispanic, and how they have been pushing and promoting consistently to get to the power. And now they already, in fact, are in a power position. And we are in those states. And in fact, Texas, which has the largest black population in the country, and we have no power.
That's a damn shame, ain't it?
Damn shame.
Breaks your heart.
Nobody wants to stop them from doing that. Now people say, well, they got poverty. Yes, but that's poverty they bring in here with them. Black folk didn't bring poverty with them. It was given to us as a gift. If you were to go back to 1840s, where I was earlier talking about Uncle Tomism, back at that point.
What's up, Taxwell?
Well, I was wondering, like Dr. Cole Anderson, he put the right philosophy out there, but did he ever where did he ever tell us to organize on the basis of what he was teaching, like to form these organizations based on lineage? Like, I'm not criticizing him, but I think like some of our scholars were right, but I don't think they gave us all the components, unless somebody can show me where he did say that, and maybe he probably did. But I know Amos Wilson was saying that we need organizations. He was pushing the organization part. The only problem with brother Dr. Amos Wilson, who I admire immensely, and I have all of his books, is that he was pushing the African consciousness. I think that was an error. I'm gonna be so bold as to say that.
I've heard Dr. Clyde Anderson. Well, look, he may not have used the specific terms of lineage, right? But I think that most of us kind of understand what he's saying when he's talking about Black Americans, Native Black Americans. Do you get what I'm saying? Who's trying to come up?
No, I'm just saying, where did he push that we need to form organizations based on what he was teaching? He was saying we should not identify as this, we should not identify as minority, but where is it that he said you need to form organizations only for Black Americans?
I'm pretty sure there's something out there about it, but this specific speech was about how black people act towards each other and towards themselves.
Yeah, and
Yes, yes.
he also said in that we have to form institutions. I mean, that was just maybe like in the last minute or so where he said that, and of course he's talking to us specifically that we need our own institutions. But to text well, name me an organization that's more powerful than the state. There isn't any. There are no institutions or organizations that are more powerful than the state. So it's a question: do we want the low hanging fruit,
Yeah.
or do we want to control the whole forest of trees? I mean, that's a very serious question.
Well, the state is powerful, we know, second to the federal government. But um, when I'm talking about as an institution, it is not a black institution. What I'm saying is that even if we want to control a majority state, we're still going to need institutions to do that. Because, like I said to you before, Brother Gary, and I have immense respect for you, what good is it if black people take over a state and they're still doing game goofy politics in that state in the majority? We see the people in Mississippi and Alabama who have a substantial population, and they're not operating in the right way politically either. So it's not as simple as population. It's population as well as political education.
Black first, you joined the stage. Peace to you. You got the floor.
Yes, sir. To the panel and everything. I just wanted to answer the brother's question about when Dr. Anderson um, was saying all of this. He began saying all of this in the late '80s, and he was really prominent in the '90s, and he was going around the country trying to tell people. But you had a lot of black individual people who were so-called in power positions. You had, and I have to be honest, you had church leadership, because I remember him doing um, a big lecture talking about this very same thing at Fred Price's church in California. They shut him down. They didn't want to hear it. The same people who are pulling the strings, who are controlling the strings of the Democratic Party, were the same people that were coming out against um, Dr. Claude Anderson and what he had to say. I came in the conversation late, but I came probably about 5 minutes before the brother said he wanted to know. He was out there telling everybody. We weren't paying attention because you had the bought and paid for bootlicks out there, and I have all of his books. His books have been out for a minute, and people just weren't picking up the message. Now, thank God, like my brother said, last 6 years, um, people have been really following Dr. Anderson, and I'm a follower of Amos Wilson also. They weren't the only people out there saying it, but they got shut down, and that's the sad part, that we were not listening. Now we see all of the fruits of his efforts coming to bear. Because remember, if memory serves me correctly, Dr. Anderson worked on Jimmy Carter's campaign, and Dr. Anderson was the first black head of a state educational system, and that was Florida. And he talks about all of these things extensively, that nobody wanted to listen. And thank God, you've got a lot of us out here who are listening, and I'll land my plane right there.
Hey, if I can add to that, for some reason the hand's not working on this particular device. To Texwell's point, and shout out to the brother who just spoke. I agree with everything he said wholeheartedly. People are not listening, and that is the biggest problem. But let me put you in a world where there's a black majority state, and we are the same people that we are today, and you have this boule class that's at the top of it. I would anticipate And I would expect, and in fact, I would even join in to the people who would be sick and tired of that to strike back in whatever shape and form was necessary to remove those people. And the difference between the system that we currently live under, where there are these others in control and people understand that, and so they're not willing to move in that way, that I do not believe our people who are intelligent, socially conscious, and revolutionary would stand back for decades and allow people who look like us to be in a position over us and to essentially destroy us or bring about our destruction. So for me, it's advantageous in every way, shape, and form possible to get into that position where we have this majority power and we can elect our people into positions of authority, because the state will control those institutions no matter if we like it or not. The state will have authority over those institutions whether we like it or not. And I think it's the change that is necessary, it's the change that is required, and it'll solve a lot of these problems. An institution is a good thing, but how many institutions have we created since deconstruction? Hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands, and they never seem to reach the goal that they set forth, and they never seem to last without infiltration and co-opting. So to continue to repeat that cycle over and over and over and over and over and over again, and thinking we're going to be the people who change it, when the people who were creating those organizations 100 years ago were far more intelligent and far closer to the reality of our enslavement than we ever will be. I just don't buy it in the same sense that it's going to change things, because you don't have enough power to change things. And that's a part of the process of them keeping us in this delusional state. We keep thinking that we ourselves can solve these problems as individuals and as organizations, and we'll never have enough power to do it.
Thank you, Black Majority. Mel, I'm sorry. Hold on. Who's about to go? Uh, Mel Diggity, are you there? Mel Diggity 91, you there?
Oh, my bad. I ain't realize I even had requested to speak. I'm gonna drop that off.
Dang. Oh, okay. Well, fine. Yeah, okay. You don't say nothing. Okay, thanks. All right. Black Majority, I'm sorry. Did you have anything else you wanted to add? Okay.
You did not have one single solitary Hispanic in the entire United States, but you had almost 5.5 million black folk that were enslaved, who had been enslaved for 250 years. You didn't have any Hispanics. By 1900, you had 100,000 Hispanics in the United States, but you got 11 million black folks. Now they got the same identical birth rate in 1900 up until today. Same identical birth rate. You got 100,000 Hispanics and 11 million black folks, and now they're going to pass black folks. Now somebody who can count past 3 should say, hold a second. How can you only have 100,000 of them in 1900 at the same birth rate? You got 11 million blacks and now passing blacks, because 2 million every year walking across the border. It is not this country's responsibility to be correcting all their poverty. It is the country's responsibility to correct the poverty they put on people. The poverty, and see, if you go through history, you cannot find one single solitary instance where anybody else in this country have been denied access to the educational system, to the economic system, to the political system, to the social system, but black folk. Don't you let anybody compare themselves with you. And that's why I said a few minutes ago, use terms that isolate you and reconnect you with your history and give you a special uniqueness so that nobody can piggyback off of you. Use the word non-immigrant. If you're gonna do wrong right. If you want to insist, for those in the audience who want to insist on using the word minority, then at least qualify and say we're the only involuntary minority, or we're the only planned minority. But don't don't use this term when it means everybody collectively, because the whole concept of minority means to confuse the issue and defuse any resources you could have gotten. Now, where does that come from as a minority? Let's deal with that concept a second. Now, at this point in time, black people have to understand in America that if you go back to the Constitution I was talking to you about earlier, the Federalist Papers were the document upon which the Constitution was drafted. The Federalist Papers said this, that if you're going to have a social democracy where the rule is that the majority will win and the minority will lose, then the majority has some obligations. First of all, if you use that social democracy that we're currently using, the majority have these obligations. One, it is the majority's responsibility to protect the rights of the minority. It is not your right as a minority to keep going out here marching and demonstrating. It is the dominant white society to make sure you got everything you need. That's their obligation. Point two in the Federalist Papers that gave the structure for the Constitution, it also says that if you use a social democracy like we have in the United States, that you cannot do anything to stop the minority from becoming the majority. And immediately after that Constitution went into effect, within a year, they enacted the immigration law to put a zero quota on blacks to make sure they stay a minority. They violated the Constitution in 1 year to make sure that you become a permanent minority. And I have not heard one black legal scholar in the United States make that an issue. None of them made it an issue. That's inappropriate behavior on the part of our legal scholars in this country. And secondly, and thirdly, in the Federalist paper, it says, and if you fail to protect, the majority fails to protect the rights of the minority, and if you do something to impede the minority from becoming the majority the same way you became the majority, then thirdly, that minority has no rights to abide by your laws and your rulings. Now think about that. Now I want to know where all my black scholars and my black legal minds, why aren't you displaying appropriate behavior, investigating that, find out why it is that you got the minority running around trying to protect itself when you know good and well it doesn't have the power and the resources to do it. That's like trying to have a baby to look out for himself when you know he cannot go out and work a job and fix his own food. It's your obligation to take care of him. But nobody raised it as an issue in this country. Where all my black legal scholars should be raising issues over the fact that in this country, that the 13th Amendment that was given to black folk, that was supposed to free black folk, was never enforced. The Emancipation Proclamation was supposed to free blacks. That's what they say in the myth. But it wasn't. The Emancipation Proclamation by Lincoln was only to free...
Oh, Governor, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was listening to I was listening to everything he was saying. He said the Federal Papers, right? The Federal Papers written by what's his name, Alexander Hamilton.
Yes.
Yeah. Now it said, shit. You know what? Come back to me because I just tried to kill a wasp nest. So you caught me when I got activated. The motherfuckers came out of nowhere, man. Hey, they tried to assassinate a nigga. All
I'm
right,
dead.
go ahead. Go.
Ain't no authority over in the first place. He was talking about the blacks who are any black who's in a state that broke away from the United States, you're free. He doesn't have that authority, just broke away. Now the blacks he could have freed that was still in slavery on the north side, he didn't do anything about them. To this day, they never corrected that. So legitimately, they are still enslaved. Secondly, if you put out the 13th Amendment, freeing people, let's go to the 14th Amendment. If you go to the 14th Amendment, The 14th Amendment saying they hereby, forbade any kind of involuntary servitude. Then they stuck a clause in there, except when duly have been prosecuted and charged. You know what that means? What that meant was then that any white in the South who wanted to re-enslave black folk, all they do is come up with a charge and they can re-enslave you. And what the South did immediately after the 14th Amendment went into process, they passed what's called a Black Codes in 1865 and 66. The Black Codes then said that any black person who used to be a slave, who's now free, he must be able to show me he has a contract for employment in his hand by the 1st of January. Or therefore I can arrest you and charge you with vagrancy and put you back into a plantation and slave you again. Now all the people...
Hey, Batman, did you have anything you wanted to say before I get to Taxwell?
No, I was actually just coming back up to have better reception and so on. But no, go ahead. I'll cede any time that I would have been given. Thank you.
No problem. Go ahead, Taxwell.
Thank you, Sister Kush. I have to drop down a lot too to regain my signal. So jumping down, that's because I can't hear anything. I'll jump back and forth to get my signal back because I'm in the mix. But I just want to comment on what Brother God is Good said. Like it sounds like, with all due respect, I think your pushback on organization, you're going to need a lot of organizations to make that happen. This is what I call post-slavery anti-organizational disorder. The organizations that we had in the past were destroyed, or they didn't quite meet their goals. We just say, the hell doing the service to our family. Everything has an organization. Nature is organized. The sun is the leader of the solar system. Your brain is the leader of your body. They're connected in an organized manner. Itself, and it's not a good thing. Respectfully, but I have
You in the Matrix, Taxwell.
maybe it was their strategy. Maybe they on board, but to say that like organizations as a is like bound to fail. That's like saying, I broke my hammer, so now I'm not going to use a hammer again if I want to hit a nail on the head.
Black Majority, did you want to respond?
Okay, yeah, thank you so much. So no, I'm not anti-organization at all. I'm just saying your expectations must match the reality of what it is you're trying to accomplish. The reality is that institutions, organizations, individuals do not have power in this country. That's just a flat out statement that cannot be denied. What has power in the country? The federal government and the state, and the federal government and the state government are the only two powers in the country with authority to investigate, to incarcerate, to punish. Institutions cannot do that. They will never be able to do that. You can take the law into your own hands, but then you are subject to the authority of the state or the federal government. Uh, we didn't need institutions and organizations to do a whole lot of things that we do and that we've done in the past and that we do today, like our spending habits. Shout out to Dr. Claude Anderson once again with the integration of us taking our money from our black businesses. I've been in a lot of spaces where people say, hey, my grandfather owned a taxi cab company prior to integration and he lost it because our people started spending money with the other folks. They collapsed black businesses because the white ice was colder. We didn't need an institution to do that. We simply made a decision and a choice as a mass population. We didn't need an institution to migrate out of the South during the two parts of the migration out of the South, and we haven't needed an organization to migrate back to the South in more numbers since 2000. 8 million plus have moved back to the quote unquote South. So it's not a matter of some institution is going to show up and then all of a sudden they're going to lead the people. That's really not how it works. Whether fortunately or not, it doesn't work that way. People make choices and decisions and then they move accordingly. And that's really all I'm saying. We just need to move accordingly. And as far as people creating institutions, just understand your institution is limited. And I know that going in attempting to create an institution or an organization, that it's going to be limited, and that's the frustrating part of it. We can't tell people what to do. And in fact, our people are programmed to resist. And that's why we get a lot of pushback when we're trying to give people information that's extremely beneficial, because we have this natural programming to resist new information, new organizations. Oh, I don't know those people. Who those people? Who's over there? I don't know. I'm not messing with them. I don't know nothing about them. That's already programmed inside of us. So it may take your organization to build it. It may take you 20, 30, 40 years before people finally say, oh, okay, they've been around long enough. Let me see what these people are up to. What I'm saying is this: we just need to have a message that says, this is where the power is. If you want the power, this is what you have to do. If you don't want the power, so be it. You don't have to do anything. But we can't keep fooling ourselves into thinking that an institution that we create, an organization that we create, is not going to ultimately suffer the same fate after the founders pass away and 2 or 3 generations decide that they don't really want to be about that. They really don't want nothing to do with what that generation wanted, because that is already happening within the gender or generational wars that occur right now today. They don't want to listen to our music. They don't want to. They don't want to think the way we think. They want to think the way that they want to think, and they want to do what they want to do. So these organizations and institutions that you may create may just die a natural death simply because you can't really pass the baton of your issues to successive generations. I mean, it's just something to think a lot deeper about. I'm not against text at all. You know, I support everything that everybody's doing. But at the end of the day, for me, if I want to kill a cow and to produce steaks and hamburger, I don't start by buying land and growing grass and then hoping that a cow shows up one day so that I can kill that cow. I go right to get the cows. And that's all I'm saying.
Uh, let
Well,
me get to Leon. Hold on, real quick, Textual. Hold on. Get to Leon, Governor, and then you can respond.
Thanks.
I'm gonna. Is Leon going next?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah. Let
Because
Leon go. Can you hear Leon?
Can you hear me?
I'm going to have to ride this out because I'm going. I can't wait to speak because I'm going on work to speak. So uh, I'll just let people figure that out for themselves. How they're going to do anything without an organization? See how it happens. Anything you want to do, I think it's ridiculous to say, "Oh, um, I don't understand the logic of it all." My father brought my speaking of cow. When I was a little kid, my father brought a half of a cow home, and he showed my brothers how to carve that cow up and turn it into and some of it into ground meat. That's an organization. How do you do anything without a group? And it's just like, bro, like I'm not getting it, man. Like if you say our children decide what music, no, that's institutions that make them decide. The institutions of the media that tell our kids what they like. They don't think they push it into.
Well, I don't know if anybody can hear me.
Your shit is going.
But
I hear you, but his
all
stuff
right,
Just
is
to
then.
sit
going
up
in
here
and
and say
out.
that
Textwell, you're in the
we
matrix.
Yeah, Tex, you in the matrix,
all right,
brother.
Textwell,
I'm out.
Textwell,
I'll
you're
just
in the
sit and
matrix.
listen.
Oh, just come back.
Yeah, I'll
Just
just
come
sit
back.
and
Okay.
Just come
listen.
back later. That's
Okay,
all.
because I said, well, yeah, but I mean, I just want to get this point across. I don't understand how anybody can agree with what he said, respectfully.
Respectfully,
Everything is an organization. Are you family?
I'm about to tell you why I agree with everything he just said. I mean,
But,
if you
but
care to
look,
live, if you
I'm
care
not
to
saying
listen.
that that you don't need. I'm not saying that you can't do some things without organizations, but there are some things that you cannot do with organizations.
Because what I was going to
Go
say
ahead,
about the
Leon.
organization, I'm going to go with God is good on what he was saying. I'm just looking at the organizations as of right now, from the boomer generation, like your civil rights and the Congressional Black Caucus and the NAACP, NAN, and all of them.
Those are not our organizations. Those are not our
Oh,
organizations.
good. You know what? You know
Hold
what,
on,
Tex?
hold on.
Tex, I am
They're
glad.
very
Finish.
Tex,
successful.
I'm
They're
glad you
very
said.
successful.
I'm glad you said that,
That's
because
an example of how. Look
at
at
the
this.
point of what I was
Look at
going
the
to make is
sororities. Look at the
exactly what you were
sororities.
just saying.
Look at the sororities.
Their
Look at
organization
the
too.
sororities
Yo,
that
they
got the
are an
whole country.
organization as well.
That's what I'm saying.
One mic. One mic. One mic. One mic. Leon has the
All right,
floor.
their organization. They are organization too. And
Sorry,
Fact
this.
that you gonna make me skip my turn. I'm
actually, I was.
Hold on. Hold
I
on.
was having a
Mute.
conversation.
Mute. Hold on. Wait a minute. First of all, your audio is going in and out. Right? So we don't know when you're chiming in, when you're not chiming in. You paused for a minute, which gave me the impression that you were done. So it's Leon's turn to talk. Let him speak uninterrupted. Everybody gets a chance to speak uninterrupted. If you can't wait, then just drop down your comments. Throw whatever you have to say in the comments. Go ahead, Leon.
But back to what I was saying before about these organizations that somebody's clearly said they're not, and I'm actually kind of glad that he said they're not. But the thing about it is, a lot of black folks think that they are our organizations and institutions. Um, like I was just naming them before. Now, he mentioned about the sororities and fraternities, because you got to put them in. You got to put them in the mix as well. What are they doing right now for the Black American community? Not a damn thing. They're all hands on deck, I'm sorry to say this, and any of y'all who are members of Divine Nine, I'm sorry, it's not a personal shot, but I'm going to just speak truth to power. And if you feel some kind of way with your emotions, maybe you need to leave the room, because this ain't going to be for you, because you ain't going to like what I have to say. Y'all ain't doing shit for the Black American community. I'm telling you right now, y'all are the enemy of within the community. You are. And I'm going by your actions. These are not words. These are your actions. Because you putting all hands on deck for a cosplaying so-called Black American woman that you damn know well she's not Black, but she's a member of your HBCU. And that's fine. But then you advocate and you advertise it as her as a member of your sorority or fraternity, what have you. But do not say that she's one of us, because she is not. Her father don't associate as himself as one. He ain't even a damn Black American anyway, but don't even associate himself as Black. He is Jamaican. He is Brahmin Indian as well. Remember, a lot of people don't realize these Indians have arranged marriages. These Indians, and I know quite a few of them, they have arranged marriages. They do not marry outside their race or color unless they are white Anglo. They hardly ever marry into any Black, period. So that's just one little rant. But going back to the institutions and stuff, NAACP, they have failed. This Robert Johnson or Dennis Johnson, whatever his goddamn name, who's the president now, he just turned that traditional Black institution into a political machine for the Democrats, period, point blank, of white supremacy. We all know Al Sharpton. He is a federal agent. So He's already been bought and paid for. These black churches, most of them are bought and paid for by the white supremacy. We don't have no institution that's speaking for us anymore. We don't even have congressmen or congresswomen in the Progressive Black Caucus are speaking for us anymore. And like I said, if you don't like what I'm saying, tough shit. Get out of your damn feelings, because this is the reality that we are in. The enemy is in the black community, cosplaying in the black American community. That is our enemy, as you say, public enemy number one. And we got to weed them out, period, point blank. Because we can't go after white supremacy until we take care of these infiltrators that are in our community now. And that's just facts. Not laying there.
All right, real quick before I go to Governor Taxwell, you got anything you need to say? Going once, going twice.
Oh
Governor, you
yeah, oh yeah. I was about to post something on Twitter. Yeah, I was posting something on Twitter, but this is what I wanted to say. This is like crazy to me. Everybody knows that oh, I'm sorry, my notifications going off on my trading. Um, Everybody knows that those legacy organizations are the enemy, basically. None, you know, everybody knows that, bro. So this is how you know organizations are successful. Now, I'm not saying that Brother G was right that some things we can do without organizations, but there are some things that you cannot do without organizations. And a prime example of how black organizations have been successful. All the legacy organizations, the D9, the Masons, Eastern Stars, and all these people, the National Black Caucus have been very successful in dumbing down our people and impeding our progress and working against us. They've been very successful at that. We just need 10,000 new lineage-based institutions in every area of people activity from local to national that are working on our behalf. And those organizations will be successful. And without that, you have a group of people. You got a crowd. With that, you have a nation within a nation. I thank you.
Governor, you then we'll get to you. Permit.
All right, yeah, Kush, I'm in a safe place now. I just wanted to say your organizations, yeah, they're not going to work because if you really think about it, even going after state and things like that, yeah, that ain't going to work either. Because you're afraid on the state side to get rid. You can't even take over municipal governments because you don't want to go through the due process. You want to be soft on crime, but then you want to make sure that everybody is safe. You can't have two. So the state thing, until you start separating from your ideas of peaceful protest, until you start getting a more aggressive attitude towards civics. Yeah, that won't work either. But your organization, a lot of those are led by perverts. You know what I'm saying? Individuals that are just trying to get some ass. We gonna get so many bitches if we do this organization, and then when your organization starts making money, hey, you can look at what happened. What's that businessman that stole all that money recently? I can't even remember his name. But yeah, just perversion of an idea gets you know what I'm saying, everything messed up. So yeah, it's been past proven that none of that's actually going to work. So younger people going to have to come up with a new idea, a new concept for creating a socialized system where it can be successful without perversion. Maybe putting families first in front of an organization. Maybe getting back on that level, putting the family first, and then everybody who has a family can join that organization. Maybe you should do that. Maybe you should start doing a value-based system. Things like that. But just straight organization and just, yeah, let you in because you black, let you in because you black. What about that lady that got like 3, 4 different baby daddies and like 5 kids? You got to think about the behaviors. This whole space is just about inappropriate behavior. So you're going to let inappropriate behavior into an organization, it's just going to muddy the water. I'm done, Kush.
You just over here doing shit like. Go ahead, you permit. You got the floor, and then we get to Batman.
Hey, what's up, Kush? And the speakers and everything on the stage.
Oh my God, you permit. I can't hear
Let
you.
me drop.
Drop down, you permit. They hating on the space. They always hating on the space with no case. My name is MF Kush. Okay, that was done. That was a wrap. We're gonna wait for him to come back up. I'm dead. But yeah, I definitely agree with that. And that's the point. Like I don't you already got like organizations, even these small nonprofit organizations out there calling themselves doing something beneficial for black folks and they ain't did a motherfuck thing. I think that's inappropriate behavior. You gonna set up something in the name of black folks and not give black folks no tangible, that's crazy. You
Hey,
permit, say
you
something.
hear me now, Kush?
Yes, I
Kush.
hear you. Go ahead.
All right. All right. Yeah. The second slide from the top on the jumbotron is two photos. One group of dots, and the other one represent a group of dots that's connected. Now I've used this in other prior talks and everything. The slide to the left, you know, Black Great State, King, he broke it down. And I'm just going to summarize what he's trying to get everybody to understand. That's how we operate right now. That one group of those big ass dots, that's your HBCUs, your D9s, your Prince Hall Masons, your NAACP, Eastern Stars, Boule, Lynx, Jack and Jill. That's all those groups that represent them in that one group, that bunch of dots. The other dots, the other photo shows the dots that are connected. That's what we need to start working towards. No matter what silo you are in, it should be a web. That's how these other communities are able to maximize their economical growth and development in these United States because they connect the dots, they form a web. Yes, a lot of them do have some internal shit that's going on with themselves. You got the Indians with the caste system, and quiet as it kept, a lot of these other groups have caste systems as well that they choose not to explain to us because it's none of our goddamn business. But in terms of these organizations and legacies, I think what's been happening is this. We have been conditioned to put our organizations that we belong to first, then everything else is second. Some folks put their organizations, their churches, the memberships to first. Prioritize those first before they prioritize the community. If I don't belong to a certain organization, I'm not going to look out for this. They're not going to look out for me on this one. But if I do belong to this organization, well, I expect them to look out for me. And look, quiet as it kept, a lot of these organizations that people belong to don't get the maximum benefits as it perceived that they are getting. Some of these groups, people who are in these organizations, are just as they are working class, they owe bills, they got a lot of debt. They give the perception that they're doing well and they're not financially. So when it comes down to understanding how these organizations move, one thing I always ask, what have they achieved and what are the measurables? What are the indicators that show that they have accomplished certain things? That's why I look at Al Sharpton and the NAACP and they want to say, oh, we keep marching, we fighting. Well, what have you accomplished by doing all this marching? What have you accomplished by doing all this protesting? Because at the end of the day, to sum it up real quick, we value the march and we value the protest, but we don't value the outcome. We march all day, we cry, we shed tears. Next thing you know, a couple weeks go by, it's back to business as usual because we don't value the outcome. The outcome is policy. The outcome is some type of economical reparations. That's the outcome. The outcome is not I feel good marching. I feel good telling that white supremacist that they are white supremacists. That's not an outcome. If anybody on their job do not give their measurables at the end of the day, what happens to you? you become replaced and or fired. Coaches that coaches on professional sports, if they don't produce wins, they get what? Fired. We don't hold people accountable like we should. That's why they stay employed in our land.
Thank you. We'll go to Batman, and we'll go to Leon, and then Black Majority.
Grand Rising, and thank you for inviting me up to speak. Regarding Leon's comments regarding the Divine Nine, regarding these fraternities, sororities, Greeks, etc., Black Greeks, I'm going to co-sign everything he said regarding that aspect of his comment. I've got friends that are alphas, had an excess in alpha. I was invited and almost became an alpha back in the early 80s. I bowed out and said, no, thank you. I just wasn't down for the hazing and the going through that process. So they really ain't about nothing. And I'm talking about some of my best friends, not about their character, but when it comes to joining those organizations and what those organizations are about and about accomplishing, they ain't about nothing, as my mama would say. And regarding organizations, it's about structure. Um, a nonprofit, Van Jones, given what $100 million, whether it was all put into the nonprofit or not, but either way, he didn't have it structured right, and he got voted out. Got voted out of his quote unquote own organization. So it's how you structure it. He should have put on a poison pill that says what happens if this happens, and basically it keeps you in position. Of course, no absolute guarantees, but you got to do what you got to do, and you do the best you can to keep the organization structured and moving forward into future generations. And I'm in the process of setting up trust so that when I move on to the next dimension, my assets are distributed as I desire them to be. I have a living will. I'm sorry, a will, a pour over will, so that when I die, what is not already in my living trust will pour over into the trust, and the successor trustee will then administrate that living trust as I direct, not what someone else says, but what I put in writing that I want to happen. So the trustee of that is in charge of my trust distributes the assets, and again, I direct what I want to happen, and those who have mega assets may want to do a non-revocable trust so that things cannot be changed, and whether it's they have children or uh, uh, children who have, let's say, special needs, um, how that child is taken care of, and no one can take their money and run with it. It's set aside specifically for them. So just going into just future generations, generational wealth, how that is to be managed and distributed, and even land trust. So you say you're buying property, that property would be put in a land trust separate from your personal trust. It's in that land trust, and that is set up specifically, and there are specific directions that are to be followed by the trustee and successor trustees. And then there are community trusts as well, different from a land trust, that can be set up, and property that goes into the community trust. Let's say it's owned by the community trust, and you can determine who is to access that property, live into that property, and if the property is sold, then it's sold. But then you have that the community trust has first right of refusal to buy it back, so you still maintain control over um, who participates. So the point is not to focus on trust so much, but to say that it's how you set up what the organization. I hear the word organization, 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 but a lot of times there is no organization of the organization. So whether it's a trust or a nonprofit, um, or a black majority state, how do you keep folks from taking it over and taking it from you, and then you become sort of just a member of an organization that you started, but you have no control or power over it? So I'll land there. Thank you.
Thank you, Batman. We'll get to Leon, Black Majority, Taxwell, and then Blood Pack.
Yeah, and if y'all can still hear me, uh, I know it might, sound harsh, but I'm not taking back for what I said. Hell, I got a sister who's in the Divine Nine. She's in Sigma Gamma Rho. I got a cousin that's a Prince Hall Mason. You know what I mean? These are blood families that are in these institutions. Hell, my grandfather was a what you would call a lodge, head of the lodge in Philadelphia. I could be one if I really want to. But after seeing what's going on in this country, I choose not to, and I stand on that 10 toes down. I can never succumb myself or my conviction to join an institution like that for what's going on and what they not doing, truly not doing in for Black Americans. I just can't see myself doing it. I can't. So yeah, I get pushback from my family members that are in these benign neglect institutions, because that's what pretty much they are now. And oh yeah, and also don't let the like these AKAs and other sororities or fraternities fool you. Remember now, I don't know if y'all know this. Every so many years, the Divine Nine get together, which have a Greek council, and they vote on which Divine Nine becomes the head of the each sorority or fraternity. Every 4 years, I think they vote on which sorority or fraternity becomes the head of the Divine Nine. So I don't know if I think the AKs are still the head of Divine Nine on the women's side, and which is what Kappas will be on the men's side. So this why, if you notice, why they all are in line with voting for Kamala. You know what I'm saying? So there's no you don't see the rift that's going on. And I'm sure there's rift because there are some people in these fraternities sororities that do have a brain, are opposing what's going on, but unfortunately they're not in the higher echelons to really speak on it. Now I'll just land there.
All right, go ahead, Black Majority. We'll get to Taxwell, Black Pack, and then Black first.
Okay, thanks for letting me speak again. So I want to go back to what Dr. Claude Anderson was pointing out, that the leaders of that day, and I'm going to call them Black establishment leaders of that day, instead of going for separation like Malcolm X and others were really, really advocating for, they went for integration. So instead of going for a position of putting our people into power and authority, they decided to give away our power and authority to the others. And that's really what the conversation really is. Do we want to stay put in this system the way that it is, the way that it's constructed? Again, everything Claude Anderson was saying in that speech, or do we actually want change? Do we actually want to change our existence, our reality? Um, Shout out to brother Governor. He said something that I've heard before. It's Roland Martin said, "Well, I don't think the people are going to do it." Um, and so whenever I hear somebody say something of that nature or something similar, I understand where that comes from. And many people may not actually do it. And this is where the dividing line is going to be in Black America. There are going to be people who are comfortable with the way things are. No matter how much they complain, they still want it to stay the same. And then there are going to be people who do not like the way things are and who actually do want it to change, and they will actually do the thing that it takes to make the change. Um, we have over 1,200 black majority cities in the country. They are not on fire. They are not falling apart. They may have issues like every other city has issues, but they do exist, and they are being governed by our people. There's over 100 black majority counties in the southeast, for the most part, where our people do govern those counties, and they're not falling apart. The problem is we don't have the state authority that we need to uplift those cities and uplift those counties and ensure that they are prosperous beyond anything that we may imagine today. That's really the choice that we have. Um, Institutions are great, organizations are great, individuals are great, it's all great, but we've done all of those things and we will continue to do those things. Establishing a black majority state doesn't stop us from having individuals who lead, doesn't stop us from having organizations that lead and that play a vital role in the community. It certainly doesn't stop us from having institutions, because many institutions are actually directly under the authority of the government, and that includes all these educational institutions and others. So it's not really an either or, and it's not one thing's better than the other. It's not a comparison. It's just, what do we really want? If we want 10,000 organizations, and I don't know if that's the same organization or if it's 10,000 different organizations scattered across the United States of America, what power will they have? What ability will they have in the local location that they are in to do anything for the people who need whatever it is that they're trying to do? That would be significantly different from the grassroots organizations and individuals that are already on the ground in those areas that we all live in. I mean, you could throw a dart at a map of the United States, anywhere where black people live, and I guarantee you there's a grassroots individual, there's a grassroots organization, and there has been a legacy of grassroots individuals and organizations that have been working against the state since deconstruction. The issue I have is, give me something new and something different to change the reality. Don't keep giving me the same medicine that hasn't fixed the ills or the problems that I'm facing as a human being in this society. That's all I'm saying. So I'll end with that.
Definition of insanity: keep doing the same thing and expect a different result.
Taxwell, you got the floor, and then it's Blood. Wait, I'm sorry. Hold on. Blood Pack, did you have something to say?
Not really. I just appreciate you playing this recording because honestly, I have never heard of Doctor. Don't want to disrespect him. And so no, I don't. I just can't hear down in the listening section.
Oh, okay. I just wasn't sure. All right, thanks. Taxwell, go ahead. You got the floor, and then we'll get to you, Permit, and then Black first. Taxwell, are you there? Going once, going twice. You, or sorry, Black first. You got the floor. Are you there?
Yes, ma'am. Um,
Damn, I can't
this
hear you.
is.
Hey, I
Can you
can't
hear
hear you,
me?
Black first. Drop down and come back up, okay? So I can hear
Okay.
you, if you don't mind. Taxwell, are you there? You're not there. Black first, drop down and come back up, okay? Please and thank you.
I'm trying to drop down. I don't know how to do that. I'm sorry.
Can somebody let him know I can't hear him?
Hey, hit leave and then come back in the room.
Can I be placed in the queue?
I just called on you twice. Go ahead, Texwell. You got the floor. Taxwell, can somebody say something to Taxwell?
Taxwell,
Yo,
you can
Texwell,
speak,
go
man, if
ahead.
you want.
Yo, Tex, go ahead.
Tex, you have the floor.
Yeah,
See, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Black first. Can you say something?
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you now. You have the floor.
Okay. I just want to make a comment on what the sister had previously said. I think she was referring to Dr. Claude Anderson. And the problem, I think, and all of you make great points, and historically, down through our history, we know we're coming to find out what is good and what is not good for us. And I think one of the I thought about when the Black Panthers came together and they put together what was a 20-point plan. I think it was in 1972 or 1971. I think one of the things that can be done is that we spread the information um, and just hit it very hard, spreading the information, because there's so much misinformation out there, and the liars are louder than the truth tellers. And one of the things I think that hinder us, we can have different opinions, and we can have, because we also can have different points of view on certain things. But the main thing is we coming together. And I sat and I listened, and everybody made great points, and they gave me something to think about. And then when she said who was the person, a lot of people don't even know who Dr. Claude Anderson is. I think if we put it out there and keep putting it out there and let it evolve. And what the brother said is correct. I got people in all of those organizations, and they don't even come to me because I know better. Don't bring the BS, because they are all control. Everything that we do in this society, if I can state that, and this is just my opinion, when it comes to black people, the dominant society controls everything. They have to. What we have to do, I think, is to move stealthily, move quickly, forcefully, like the brother said, because we lost that revelation, that revolutionary spirit. Um, I heard the brother talk about the kids. The kids don't want to hear what we're saying. They've been taken over. Remember, they took what was positive in our community. Now they have made it negative. Remember, gangster killer rap. Um, all of this stuff evolved so that they can maintain control. And we have to separate ourselves both mentally, spiritually, and physically from that control, whereby we can see what is actually going on. Because the other brothers, and he was correct, we got so many people who don't care. They're just going to survive. And I was in the military. And one of the things that the military is good at, they're gonna send the fodder out there first. And what I mean by that, they gonna send a group out there that they know they're gonna die. But the long run is they play the short game to win the long game. And I think that's what we have to do. Everything is being controlled. And if we can speak loudly, forcefully, clarify what it is that we stand for in the midst of all of these lies. Because no matter what we say, and I'm on Twitter, I talk to people all the time. Believe it or not, believe it or not, and you heard this from me. Believe it or not, a lot of people want Donald Trump to win. Black people, because they made money when Donald Trump was president. And what they vote, what people vote on, is their pocketbooks. And so I asked them, I said, did you make a lot of money with it? And they said yes. And so what I mean by that is you got a stealthy group of people who are listening, they understand, and then you got a group that just don't care. they, they are content with the situation, and I think that has to change. We have to put the information out there. And to the sister that didn't know, you could go to powernomics.com and you could buy all of Dr. Claude Anderson's book. He laid it out. He is a genius. He laid it all out, and like I said, he was not heard. So we've got to, sis, you got to, if it has to be repeated 24/7, because they repeatedly dog us with information, false information, 24/7. You come back again in 2 days, do the same thing you're talking about now, so that somebody come on, so that somebody can listen and somebody can learn. And all of this in institutions, the institution that everybody I think failed to mention is the family. They have destroyed the black family. Our families were one of the strongest families in this country. We had issues, but we bonded together. And if you can get that, focus on that from male to female, because they have put divisions between men and women that they caused. It, they have put they have taken over our children's minds with this with this music. It's all vibrations. It's all vibratory. um they put a beat to it, and we support it, and the same, we support these institutions that do damage to us. We just have to be consistently truth tellers. Say the truth, sister. Just put it on. If we have to do it 24/7, somebody, well, they on again on Twitter talking about this. We have to constantly repeat it, because there's so much lying going on. And the brother said about the caste system. Kamala Harris is a Brahmin. If we studied the caste system, the Europeans took the caste system from the Indians. Who was on the bottom of the caste system in India? The untouchables. What color were they? They were the darkest, even though they came out of Africa, the Darwinians, because that's all they are. They're Ethiopians. That's where they come from. But they made a system, and you argue whether she black or whether she not, whether she black or whether she's not going to support black folks. We know she's not going to support folks. We got to hit folks with policy. And I did this with my daughter-in-law. She was so for Kamala Harris. I said, wait a minute, have you looked at her policy of what she's doing? Forget the colorism, because they gonna play it. That's a skate type of thing. She ain't concerned about this, never has been. That's why Joe Biden picked her. Look at the dots. Joe Biden locked us all up. He knew about the crack cocaine coming in our community. He was in the Senate. Then Clinton and Bush and them, he wrote the laws in 86. He started it. He knew about this. What did he do? He picked another person that did the same exact damn thing in California to us, and he brought her on the ticket. And what he did, and the brother's right, the divine night. You said you was gonna pick a black woman, man. You fool! He didn't pick a woman from the soil. He didn't pick a FBA woman. We're always getting played. We have to start playing chess. And forgive me, I'm about to land my plane. We just got to get that institution that we got to get back is the family. Brothers got to get together with brothers and start speaking the truth. Sisters have to get together with sisters, start speaking the truth, calling out the lies. We got to take back our children, because let me tell you something. I work in the corporate world, and I'm on lunch break now. All the bullshit that they sell us, they're not doing. And we're buying it. Hook, line, and sinker. And we don't have communities anymore. We used to have communities. We are so broken. We suffer from this post-traumatic slave syndrome. We, like the brother said, we suffer from insanity, because we're constantly trying to do the same things. We have to be truth tellers, to stand on the mountain. And like the brother said, no matter if you got to stand by yourself, you stand and you keep telling it, and we all come together. And I bring back to what the Black Panthers did, that point plan. They met. They sacrificed. We're going to have to sacrifice. And a lot of times, and another brother mentioned it, we don't want to sacrifice. We don't want to put anything on the line, because Yes, our institutions were destroyed. We let it happen because we thought the sugar was better on the other side. Well, actually, brown sugar is better. Or if you go to cane, you guys get my point. We've got to be truth tellers. If you have to do this thing 24/7, we have to combat ignorance in our community. There are a lot of people who know, but they have no outlet to speak. So how can you do it without an institution? How they want to speak. You got so many young people out here who are on the same level of thinking that you brothers and sisters are, but they don't have an outlet where they can come together and discuss their point of views. It's like sometimes you learn something, you do something, and have you ever come to feeling that you're all alone in all this? It's like, wait a minute, don't you know what I know? Sometimes they don't. So my thing is first institution family. That's the first organization we got to get back as our black family. The second one is that we have to form things where we're truth tellers. We don't accept no bullshit. We know shit gonna get infiltrated. We know stuff is gonna happen. We know you got bootlicks out there, but you can tell how they thinking. You can investigate, just like Interpol and FBI investigated us. We need to investigate everybody that comes before us and speak, because that old saying that everybody keeps saying, all skin folk ain't kinfolk. And they have divided us. They have divided us from FBA to the Caribbeans. They let Africans come over here. Well, then you got to know why they let Africans come over here. They trying to get rid of us. We are black men and black women are the only ethnic group in this country that will stand against white supremacy and fight. Everybody else is not going to do it. They're going to try to get theirs. Well, what they're coming to do, my brothers and sisters, and all of y'all know this. We built this country. They're coming to get the benefits of what we, blood, sweat, and tears, toil in this country. And we sitting here fighting against each other. We know these groups ain't no good for us. I used to belong to the NAACP. I got out when my mindset changed. And the third institution that has to change is your mind, and we got to start changing people's minds, combating it with the truth. Thank you so very much. I'm a listen. I just had to get that off my chest. All of you make great points, something that we could take. And I've learned something I can approach a situation differently, because some people are just not ready. Believe it or not, they're not. They're just going along. You got a lot of black folks who are just go along with anything. They don't care, because we're being divided on so many different fronts, and nobody is speaking the truth. Blessings to all of y'all. I land my plane. I'll sit back and listen.
Thank you. We'll go to. Let's get
That
to.
brother had the biggest fuel tank of any airliner I ever seen, but God bless him, he was right.
I
He didn't
did.
tell no lies. He didn't run out of plane fuel or jet fuel either, but he ain't tell no lies.
I had a lot on my mind, brother. I'm sorry.
When I
Let's.
grow up, I want to speak uninterrupted like you one day.
I'm dead.
But
Okay.
I
Well,
just want to say my contribution
this.
here and my pushback here is I'm still hearing a line. I'm just up, Chief. I'm still hearing a line of conversation like nullifying the importance of organizations.
Hello?
And when I
Sir?
hello,
Hey, did
oh,
you hear Kush was talking?
no, I didn't. I'm sorry. I thought I
Oh,
was
my
next.
bad.
I thought I was next. Kush was
Go go
talking.
go
I'm
go
sorry.
go
Let me go
ahead,
off.
Taxwell.
Okay.
Can he hear me? Taxwell, you can't hear me.
I don't think he can hear you, Kush.
That's because he's musty. That's why you got motherfucking Bantu Wi-Fi.
Probably
Text,
your hot
jump
breath.
down and come back up.
It's
Yes.
probably your hot breath, Kush, melted
No, I
his
think it's your mustache.
Wi-Fi.
I think it's your mustache. But go ahead, you permit. You got the floor.
Now I was going to say and remind everybody that along with who picks who, let's remember that Biden delivered all the blue flag, Confederate flag waivers along the I-95 corridor for his success of developing the crime bill, the 1994 crime bill, and Obama picked him. So as you can see, there's a trend and pattern right there. So if you're against black folks, you get put into certain position of success. Obama picked Biden, Biden picked Kamala. Second point I want to make is, do we do in this room here, do we think that we value economics and our money like other groups? Because if we put my money and our economics first as a priority to make sure we make money, how can we get this money? How can we start businesses, home ownership? What's the best way of protecting our assets? If we put that first versus worrying about making history by having these certain so-called quote unquote black folks in these high positions that always said they ain't doing shit specifically for us, maybe we need to start, because I had these conversations with some of my people. I'm like, part of the issue I see is that we don't value money and our economics like these other groups do. So why is it that some of these other groups just touched down at JFK Airport 10, 15 years ago and they have surpassed us median income? Why is that? Yes, I know that they get heads up from the government and everything, and they get a handout from the government to get jump started in their system. But why we can't force these same individuals that will sit up there and cape for these individuals just touched down at the airport or came off the boat, like how why can't we get those same things? You know why? Because the people who sitting up there and look like us are not advocating for us, because if you have to look at their backgrounds, like your Roland Martins, your Angela Rise. A lot of those people, they don't have any offspring. And this is no knock to anybody in this group that do not have children, that they leave something to do, but they might have relatives, younger relatives to leave something. I'm not knocking. But you have to look at the background of these people too. Why are they pushing for other groups to advance? Because before I push for another group to advance, I want to make sure my kids and my kids' have enough money and resources so that they can survive. Why is it that the NAACP would rather give and support illegal immigration than they own black folks that's been in this country? We have to start looking at that. Yes, they're getting paid. Wells Fargo gave the NAACP $50 million, I think it was 2 years ago, after Wells Fargo got found of being that lawsuit of opening up accounts under people's names, higher interest rates for black families trying to buy homes, denied loans and stuff to black people who are trying to start up their businesses. And this is what they do. They pay off these organizations the hush money so that they don't have to advocate for us. The same thing they do with the food stamp system. Pepsi paid the NAACP to support Pepsi products to continue to be purchased off the EBT card. We all know Pepsi and all these Coca-Cola brands and stuff is not good nutritionally, but that's what they do. So to put it back into the conversation, do we really value our money and our economics like these other groups do, or we value the optics of having the money because of the way they push these other so-called quote-unquote black people to take these positions of power without any type of uh, uh, repayment back for the support in our land.
Anybody speaking?
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Texwell.
Okay, I know y'all sick of me, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Oh man, I'm just saying, y'all. Like, I was talking about the effectiveness of organizations, and people start talking about how bad the NAACP and the D9 is as an example of why we shouldn't have organizations. No, those organizations are successful. Like I put in the jumbotron, they are very successful. And the shit they do to us, such as dumbing down our people and impeding our progress, they wouldn't be able to do it if they were not organized. The National Association of Black Journalists is an organization. Well, we need the National Association of New Black Media. Huh? Are you catching my drift?
Are you picking up what I'm putting down? For every institution that they have, we need a counter institution to counter the NAACP, to counter the Urban League, to counter the D9. There should be black first lineage-based fraternities that spring up like new, because those institutions have been co-opted by other people other than us. And this is what I'm saying. That's why I say we need 10,000 new institutions. I shouldn't be promoting no institution, because Yvette get all my grits money, and I could be up here and say I'm only going to promote ADOS. No, I'm saying this is what our people need. We need political organizations like, yeah, she get all my grits money. We need political organizations like ADOS Foundation. We need them state. Well, we're going to have state chapters. We're rolling out state chapters. We need institutions in every city, political-based institutions in every neighborhood. We need medical institutions, organizations of doctors, black first doctors, lineage-based doctors, lawyers, lineage-based engineers, association of lineage-based garbage sanitation workers, association of lineage-based postal workers, on a national level and on state level and on local level and in your particular location. So whatever your profession is, you should be organizing on your job the people that are your lineage, so that they don't get pushed out of that job, because we see that happening. So this is what I'm saying. We could do some things without institutions, but some things you're never going to be able to do it without an organization, without several organizations. Even if I was going to open up a fish fry store, I would organize my community and start educating the people in my neighborhood of why they should go to my chicken wing spot and not the Korean's chicken wing spot. Because you're going to get some damn chicken with some damn feathers on it. He ain't even burned the feathers off. And he's not hiring your people. And he's treating your people, he's disrespecting your people when they come in his place. And he has a chicken outside in a bucket wide open for the flies to be on it. But first of all and foremost, you should support my black business, because I'm hiring your children for summer jobs or after school work. This is why we cannot do business without politics. We cannot do anything without organizations. We need 10,000 new spanking brand new lineage-based institutions in every area of people activity from local to national. And when you have that, you have a nation within a nation.
Was that it? Okay, thank you, Textbook. Governor Gaines, and we'll get to Blood Pack.
I'm gonna just add in this again. Um, the gentleman, guess it was Black First, brought up family. If you're not going to start from the beginning, you're gonna meet in the middle. Are black people, not you specifically, are black people willing to take on the responsibilities of others? Meaning, you got a divorced woman or you have a widow, she's got kids. Yeah, you're gonna marry her, but what about those children? You see, I come from a family that, we're gonna buy the female. I'm trying to stay clean, Kush. If we purchase the cow, we're gonna get the milk too. You know, I'm gonna take your kid. I'm gonna take the responsibilities off that other man, because I'm presiding over you and those children. That's the family I come from. My last name is my last name because my great grandfather was adopted. And I know the story. Are we willing to get back to that type of family? Or are we just gonna keep letting women run the household? That's inappropriate behavior for you, Kush.
Blew y'all asses up. Go ahead, Blood Pack. You got the floor, sis.
Peace, peace, and blessings. To answer the brother's question, I think we are willing to get back to and go back to that sort of frame of family. And that is, I think, going to be a key element that separates us after reparations and everything like that. People coming over here, when they talk about people coming over here getting free stuff or doing better than us, keep in mind those people coming over here are not they're not doing better than us. They're literally being given our stuff. They're being given our land. They're being, the state government is figuring out a way to either tax us out, push us out, exclude us out, price us out of our homes, our homesteads, our land, our generational wealth, and then just freely give it to new people. And so they're not coming over here and then doing better than us. They're literally coming over here and taking from one of us. They're joining the eminent domains. They're building railroads across our homes, even though they have perfectly blank landscape that they could build the railroad through. So just keep in mind they're not coming over here and doing better than us. They're coming over here and taking from us. It's colonization. Yay! I land my plane.
And that's exactly what Dr. Claude Anderson was over there talking about. Like, nigga, I'm not worried about what's going on in no white community and no Hispanic community and none of that. I'm concerned about what's going on in the Black American community. That's what I'm concerned about. I can't handle what everybody else got going on, honey. We can only focus on what we got going on. We're supposed to be focusing on building up our businesses, but building up each other, building up our Black American economy. Because when you think about where you're at as a Black American in this economy, like how many of y'all are homeowners and how many of y'all are able to start a generational wealth for your family? Some of us aren't able to do that, and that's the sad part. But you see white folks, people who control the media, people who got all these resources to be able to do this and that and everything else shit and take from us. They took the land from us. They took the economic status from us. They took everything that we managed to create an event and try to say that it was ours and say we ain't even invent shit. Like, come on now. Go ahead, Governor.
Man, you show me somebody that's trying to adopt Destiny's Child. Ain't nobody trying to do that.
Say my name, say my name.
Ain't nobody want to adopt Destiny's Child. But I appreciate her for answering the question. But that gets back to that traditional mindset that, family first. I mean, because if you're taking over the woman, you're feeding the child. I mean, you might as well have some authority over it. But yeah, I'm gonna get back to working on my Black American owned business, Kush. I appreciate your space.
You need to worry about that wasp. That shit was serious.
I had to get the gasoline and put the gasoline in the jug and spritz them mugs, man. It was bad over here. It was war.
uh All right, y'all. Don't forget to subscribe to the Wake and Bake YouTube channel with Kush. Do not also forget about your Black American Business Space Part 8 reminder. Okay, we're going to be talking about firearm safety. We're going to talk about these racist gun laws, right? In addition to that, tomorrow, we're going to have a double space Wednesday. This does not happen often, but I had a highly requested space at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Eastern Standard Time. We're going to have an open conversation about the Black Blue versus Black America. And then Wednesday morning, we're going to talk about whether Trump picked the wrong VP. And then in addition to that, come to find out, Kamala Harris has chosen her VP. We'll get into that tomorrow as well. Do. But does anybody have any last words? Oh, yeah. Does anybody got any last words?
In the massacre, and as a
Okay. If not, we're going to finish up this clip from Dr. Claude Anderson. And then, yeah, that's kind of like where we're at.
people knew that. They didn't raise any cane about it. Today, that's still a part of our Constitution. I don't hear my black scholars. Where's the appropriate behavior? Now, why is that important now when I talk about appropriate behavior? Because now there's a bill on the Hill where some white conservatives now want to lay claim to the 14th Amendment and say they're going to write a law called Equal Opportunity Act. What they're going to say now is that bill can be. And what black folks should have done, that the 14th Amendment was strictly written for black people. That's what, see, in other words, whites are using the 14th Amendment for reverse discrimination charges against black folk. Now, you all follow me through on this. How can you allow somebody, if something is written on this side to help save you from this guy, how can you let him take the same law and knock your brains out on the other side with it? Am I losing you all on this now? So how can whites come around now and claim use of the 14th Amendment that was written to protect black folk from whites? And now whites are taking it and use it to hit blacks with it. Where are my black lawyers and judges? And you got a black sitting on the Supreme Court now, it keeps ruling, talking about he's the constitutional authority based on the Constitution. I'm just telling you, the Constitution is knocking our brains out. I don't need no more Constitution. So, but all these questions need to be raised in our court system about what's happening to us. And nobody's doing that. So in the bottom line, what I'm saying to you is that we got major problems in society, but we keep doing all these things wrong. We are poor and impoverished because we don't build communities, as I told you a few minutes ago. Secondly, we are the richest nation on earth outside of the United States as black folk. In the world, we are the 9th richest nation on earth. We got an annual disposable income of $382 billion. But we violate all the norms of economics as black folk. That's inappropriate behavior. Your money is supposed to bounce 8 to 12 times before it leaves your community. I'm going to say that again. Black money is supposed to bounce 8 to 12 times. That means it must go through at least 8 to 12 black and the Jew on the other hand, money bound 18 times before it leaves the earth. You look at the rest of the money outside their own community. They spend, in their community, they spend 3% of that with non-black owned businesses. Black folk try to live off of 2% of their disposable income. They keep 2% every year. Then they take that 2% and put it into a savings account, a bank, and then they can't even get a loan from the white bank they put it into. Now, anybody's right mind knows that it's humanly impossible for you to live off of 2% of your income. It can't be done, but we keep trying to do the impossible. Why do we keep trying to live off of 2% and you know it can't be done? So what happens then is every night, every black community in America goes bankrupt when the last non-black in a black community closes up the store, cleans out the cash register, and goes home. We go bankrupt from that night until the next morning. And the reason we're doing that, the reason we're so impoverished, is because other groups are also boycotting us. We don't have any business structures in our neighborhoods because others are boycotting you. As long as you live, you'll never see a white person because his money is bouncing in his own community. So he's not going to let his money bounce in your community. So when he gets money, he keeps it. You don't see him getting in his car on a Saturday morning, like this morning, driving down to a black neighborhood, getting out of his car, going into a black store, buying a black-made product. He doesn't do that. If he does do that, I told y'all before, take a picture of it if you see it. It might be very valuable one day. Every black I know tries to get into Chinatown every Friday and Saturday evening. Have you ever seen Chinese trying to get into a black neighborhood to buy anything? Then why do you keep doing it? Inappropriate behavior. You keep doing everything inappropriately, backwards. You got to quit doing it. I'm not telling you to be mean against anybody. I'm not telling you to be against. I'm saying take care of your own people. Don't do what they're doing in slavery. And an instance of that, let me jump back in the history again. On the eve of the Civil War, we had over 6,200 blacks in America that owned other slaves. 6,200 blacks were slave owners. Now, let me break that down a little more specific for if you don't understand what I'm talking about, not looking out for your own people, inappropriate behavior. Same thing out of Africa. They never changed all these things, still doing the same thing in this brainwashing, seeing things upside down. In New Orleans, for instance, in New Orleans, I only had 842 blacks in the city at the time.
Hey guys, just want to give you guys a reiteration. The audio that you guys are hearing is probably weird to you because you're in the listeners. Twitter been messing with the space. So just come on stage if you guys want to hear it because the audio is almost over with.
And out of the 842, 612 of them owned slaves. Because they thought they were of a different color. They called themselves Creole and mulatto, so they wouldn't enslave the rest of their people. Were free in New Orleans, and out in Paris, Paris. The blacks went and joined the whites to put down a black revolt. And not only did they put it down, they slaughtered the help of the head on the pole.